Chapter 309. After the 8th day of the first lunar month, big and small companies in Beijing have opened for business. Of course, Flying Stone Records was no exception, but the Celebrate the Spring Festival banner was still hung on the porch on the ground floor of the building. A row of long red lanterns still exuded the festive atmosphere of the new year, and the ground was still red from the explosion of firecrackers. Lu Qin and Qin Fei came together, and Lin Jijie and a vice president of Flying Stone Records greeted them at the door in person. Such a courtesy made Lu Qin secretly feel strange. He and Qin Fei and Lin Jijie were friends. The two sides often came to Flying Stone Records and were very familiar with each other. Moreover, it wasn't the first or second time that they came to Flying Stone Records. Even if Lu Qin's status has improved a lot now, there's no need to be so formal and grand, right? Must there be a request for courtesy? Lu Qin thought in his heart and asked with a smile, "Big brother Lin, why are you so polite? I'll be embarrassed to visit next time." Qin Fei also said with a smile, "Yes, big brother Lin is too polite." Lin Jijie laughed and said, "You're welcome, you're welcome. You two are the first group of distinguished guests this year. Of course it should be grand. I haven't congratulated Lu Qin on winning the Best Newcomer and Best Composition awards. It's a pity that it's not now." As the music director of Flying Stone Records, Lin Jijie was of course eligible to participate in the Asian Chinese Music Chart award ceremony, but he just came back from abroad yesterday, so he couldn't catch up with the party. Of course, it was not too late to send congratulations now. Lu Qin said with a smile, "Thank you." The group of people chatted and laughed and came to the conference room of Flying Stone Records. Because Qin Fei had been notified in advance, Flying Stone Records was already ready. Many of the key members of the record company were already sitting in the conference room, and the LCD TV on the wall also showed the words, "Qin Fei's new album Woman Flower, Production Seminar." Seeing Lu Qin, Qin Fei and others coming in, these elites of Flying Stone Records got up to greet them. Flying Stone Records attaches great importance to Qin Fei's transformational work and strives to make a good start in 2016. Therefore, they have formed a capable force headed by Lin Jijie to be responsible for the production and distribution of the new album. Woman Flower was the name of the new album. This song was tailor-made by Lu Qin for Qin Fei, and it was also the title song of the album. According to the plan, the music video would be shot next week for pre-promotion. Today's small meeting was to discuss the production, publicity and other work of the album. Because Qin Fei has his own independent studio, and the new album was outsourced to Flying Stone Records, there must be a lot of cooperation problems. In addition, Lu Qin had joined the team, so all aspects needed to be coordinated. In addition to Lu Qin, Qin Fei and Lin Jijie, there were also the producers, songwriters, arrangers, recording studio, publicity and so on of Flying Stone Records. The meeting lasted for almost 2 hours before it ended, and the atmosphere was friendly and warm. Lu Qin didn't speak much, but no one dared to ignore his existence. He alone was responsible for the creation of half of the album, and he was also responsible for the co-arrangement and supervision, which was even more important than Lin Jijie. After the meeting, Lin Jijie took Lu Qin and Qin Fei to his office. The music director of Flying Stone Records personally made coffee for the two of them. The coffee he used was excellent, with a rich and mellow taste. The strange thing was that there was not much bitterness, and it tasted particularly smooth. Although Lu Qin was not an expert in tasting coffee, he could taste the extraordinariness. In contrast, Qin Fei was more knowledgeable. After taking a few sips, she was quite moved. "Big brother Lin, is this authentic Blue Mountain coffee?" Lin Jijie said with a smile, "Yes, I just brought back Blue Mountain coffee from Japan. They're only 2 pounds. If you like it, take 1 pound back when you leave." Blue Mountain coffee was one of the best coffee in the world, but it was also the most counterfeited coffee brand. In China it was ruined like pearl milk tea. In any city you could casually walk into a coffee shop, and you could order a cup of so-called Blue Mountain coffee that cost dozens of yuan. In fact, the annual output of this kind of coffee from Blue Mountain in Jamaica does not exceed 100 tons, and most of it is supplied to European and American countries, and there are very few domestic imports. Because the Japanese have invested a lot in the industrial chain of Blue Mountain coffee, they have obtained a lot of market share, so authentic Blue Mountain coffee can still be bought in Japan, but the price has been hyped very much. 1 pound. Qin Fei pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Big brother Lin is too polite. If you have something to say, just say it." As smart as she was, how could she not see that Lin Jijie had something to ask of her, so she was extraordinarily polite. "Sure enough, I can't hide it from Fei." Lin Jijie was not embarrassed to be seen through. He said with a smile, In fact, it's not my business. I just want to ask Lu Qin, do you have any plans to shoot a new TV series this year? Lu Qin suddenly understood that Flying Stone Records was also eyeing his new play. The great success of Autumn in My Heart made Lu Qin a hot figure in the film and television circle in just a few months. The 20-episode urban romance drama premiered on Hygiene Satellite TV and created the highest ratings record of the same type of TV series in recent years, and made many newcomers, including Lu Qin himself, popular. For example, Hu Yang, who played the first male supporting role of Han Taishi, and Zhang Liwei, who played the first female supporting role of Cui Xinai, were both artists who had debuted for a long time. But before the broadcast of Autumn in My Heart, how many people had heard of the names of these two? Now Hu Yang's commercial performance started at 200,000 yuan, and the brand endorsement was at least 3 million yuan. His value had skyrocketed dozens of times, and he was busy with advertisements which made many of his peers envious and jealous. There were also Zhang Juanji and Yi Mingmei, who played the role of Juanxi and Eunhee when they were young, who also became famous overnight. As for Chinda Brothers Pictures, which invested in the filming of Autumn in My Heart, it was even more prosperous. The success of Autumn in My Heart was really a miracle. It had a great influence in and out of the circle, and the ratings of the first episode of the replay on Beijing television and Zhidong satellite TV both exceeded 1%, which was enough to prove that the popularity of the show had not diminished. Under such circumstances, Lu Qin's new play this year has become one of the focuses of attention in the circle. Many people in the industry think that Lu Qin is likely to shoot the second part of Autumn in My Heart. After the new year, the phones of Lu Shi and Lu Qin studio were almost blown up by people. There was an endless stream of people who came to the door to seek cooperation and recommend artists. Even many stars also inquired about the news through various channels. Even Qin Feier was harassed a lot because of this. Her relationship with Lu Qin was not a secret in the circle. It was normal for Flying Stone Records to also come to join in the fun. Lu Qin said, "Big brother Lin, since you want to ask me, shouldn't this coffee be given to me?" Of course Lu Qin was joking. As a result, Lin Jijie gave him a mocking look. "Is there any difference between giving it to Qin Feier and giving it to you? Is there?" "Well, there is no difference." Lu Qin sighed and said, "The plan is to start preparing next month. If everything goes well, filming will probably start in April." Lin Jijie's eyes suddenly lit up. "Is it the second part of Autumn in My Heart?" Lu Qin shook his head. "No, I won't make a sequel to this play. I have an idea for a new play." Even Qin Feier was interested. "What's the content of the story?" Lu Qin told her about the new play, but it didn't involve specific things such as the outline of the story. Lu Qin said with a smile, "It's a secret for the time being, but the play will not be a tragedy again. You are still the heroine." Qin Feier gave him a white look, but her heart was sweet and happy. Due to unforeseen consequences, Lu Qin and Qin Fei haven't made their relationship public for the time being, but they don't intend to hide it for a long time. The best way is to let fans accept their relationship through this subtle influence. Tian, that's right. After Autumn in My Heart was broadcasted, in the eyes of many fans, the two were the best CP combination. "Your career is getting bigger and bigger," Lin Jijie sighed heartily. As one of the 4 judges of Singing China, he could be said to have watched Lu Qin become famous all the way to the present. The music director of Flying Stone Records said, "Your sister told me that you intend to change the studio's location?" Lu Qin replied frankly, "Yes, I merged a music studio and am going to build a high-specification recording studio. The place I rented now is too small. If there is a suitable place here, it would be best. A man who makes music should have his own recording studio." Lin Jijie said with a smile, "That's what my mentor once told me. I really envy you. You're also very lucky. I know a friend who has opened a large art studio here. Now he intends to transfer half of the site. The sublease fee is not cheap, but it's enough to accommodate your new studio. Is this good news?" Lu Qin was surprised. Really? He didn't expect to be able to take root in the art park. The property here was too popular and there was no spare space at all, so even if he shared it with others, it would be lucky. Lin Jijie is a professional. If he says it's enough, it must be enough. Lin Jijie nodded. Of course it's true. It's also a coincidence that my friend needs money recently. Otherwise, he would never be willing to divide half of his territory. There's no time like the present. Since you're here today, I'll bring you over to talk to him now. Lu Qin was grateful. Thank you, big brother Lin. I really troubled you. He was secretly admiring in his heart. Lin Jijie just asked him if he had any plans to shoot a new drama. After asking, he no longer said what he thought, but first proposed to help. In this way, once the matchmaking was successful, he would owe him a favor. Lin Jijie's way of dealing with people was very quiet, which was worth learning. Of course, Lu Chen himself was also very happy, and deeply felt the importance of networking. Without Lin Jijie, if others wanted to sublease the venue, he wouldn't even get the news, let alone talk about it. Chapter 310. Lin Jijie's friend Yu Jizhong opened an art studio in the New Era Art Park. Yu Jizhong's studio was not far from the headquarters of Flying Stone Records, and it was only a 5-minute walk away. It was located in a unique building composed of large areas of glass and steel frames, separated by a green belt and an art square. The buildings in the New Era Art Park were very distinctive. There were basically no high-rise buildings here. Most of the buildings were only 2 or 3 stories high, and Yu Jizhong's studio was no exception. On the first floor, except for the front desk, most of the space was given over to the exhibition hall for displaying art. The main exhibits included oil paintings, small sculptures, photographic works, and modern art. Upstairs, the second floor was the art workshop, including a painting room, a sculpture room, an office, and so on. Lu Chen met Yu Jizhong in the painting room. The artist appeared to be in his 40s or 50s. He wore a set of work clothes stained with oil paint. He was stocky with a large face, thick eyebrows, and bright eyes. He had the typical messy hair and beard of an artist. Lin Jijie introduced him to the two. Lu Chen, this is Yu Jizhong, teacher Yu, a real artist. Lu Chen immediately reached out and said, "Hello, teacher Yu, I've heard a lot about you." In fact, he didn't know the other party at all, nor had he heard of this person's name. It was nothing more than a polite greeting. This is Lu Chen, a musician who has his own studio. Chen Fei had gone back early, so only Lu Chen came with Lin Jijie. Yu Jizhong probably didn't watch entertainment news. He looked at Lu Chen calmly and probably didn't know Lu Chen. He shook hands with the latter indifferently and said, "Hello." Lin Jijie said with a smile, "Old Yu, Lu Chen wants to rent your land. You have to give me some face." Yu Jizhong's face finally showed a smile. "Let's talk in my office." With Lin Jijie's matchmaking, Yu Jizhong still gave him quite a lot of face. He changed into a clean set of clothes and asked his assistant to bring him tea. They chatted like friends in the office. The building occupied by Yu Jizhong's studio alone had a usable area of about 1,800 square meters. Yu Jizhong could at most allocate 1,000 square meters of space to make it a shared rental. Of course, the subletting fee was not small. According to the artist, as long as he released the news, there would be people willing to rent it at a high price. This location was considered very good in the entire art park. Since Lu Chen was Lin Jijie's friend, he was willing to give Lu Chen priority, but there was a condition. If you're involved in music, you can't disturb us. Otherwise, we won't be able to negotiate no matter how high the price is. Lu Chen smiled and said, "That's easy. When I redecorate the place, I promise to make sure that it's soundproof." The soundproofing of the recording studio was the best, and there was no noise problem. The only trouble was the practice room, but as long as the decoration was in place, it would definitely not affect the neighbors. The office was also afraid of noise. Yu Jizhong's words proved that this matter was basically not a big problem. As for the subletting price, it needed to be discussed by both sides again. It couldn't be settled in a few words. In general, it was very smooth. The communication between both sides was quite pleasant. Yu Jizhong didn't have the strange temper of an artist. But when it was time to say goodbye, he suddenly seemed to think of something and asked, "Lu Chen, did you write a song called Blue Lotus?" Lu Chen was stunned. "Yes." Yu Jizhong nodded and said, "I've heard it. It's a very good song." When Lu Chen returned to the studio, it was almost dark. It was already off work and there was no one in the office, but the manager's room was still lit. He went to have a look and found that Lu Shi was still working in front of the computer, and her fingers were typing quickly on the keyboard. Lu Chen said, "Sister, it's late. Let's go to dinner together." Lu Shi turned her head and asked, "Where's Fei?" Lu Chen said, "She has other things to do. By the way, the new studio has been found. I went to see it in the afternoon. It's very suitable. You have to go and talk to them about the rent tomorrow." Lu Shi was surprised. "So fast? Did Director Lin help?" Lu Chen nodded. "Yes, she really helped a lot this time. I owe her a big favor." He said, "Let's go. We'll talk while eating." "Don't worry." Lu Shi held the mouse and opened a web page and said, "Take a look at this first." "What?" Lu Chen walked over curiously and found that Lu Shi had opened his personal Tieba. Although his Tieba was established by fans and netizens, Lu Chen Studio also had management rights after passing the qualification certification. Therefore it was semi-official, and it was also within the scope of Lu Shi's work. In the future, when Lu Chen Studio moved and expanded, the work in this area would definitely be separated and handled by someone else. In his Cheba, the top page was marked in red and it was a post about someone who had been skinned. Lu Chen quickly browsed through the post and found that the person who was skinned was a guy with the ID Heavy Metal Element. This person was not a fan member of Lu Chen's Cheba, but he had made many comments in the Cheba. The posts of Heavy Metal Element were basically attacks. It was very common for some people to like and dislike stars and idols. This reflected on the internet. If there were real fans, there would naturally be haters. The Cheba would not be full of praises. Under normal circumstances, as long as there were no bad situations such as slanderous words, personal attacks, or rumors, the Cheba administrator would not randomly delete posts and retain a certain amount of dissident voices. But last night, when Lu Chen won the Best Newcomer award and the fans in the Cheba celebrated, this Heavy Metal Element jumped out and said strange things. He also bet with others that Lu Chen could not win the Best Composition award. In the end, after being slapped in the face, he pretended to be dead, which completely angered many fans. Therefore, some experienced and skilled fans started to track down Heavy Metal Element, wanting to find out his true identity. By tracking the traces left by Heavy Metal Element in the Cheba, they really did find something. This Heavy Metal Element's true identity turned out to be Ling Xiaoxiao's assistant. Ling Xiaoxiao could be considered Lu Chen's old enemy. The grudge between the two could be traced back to when Lu Chen had just debuted. However, at that time, the two could be said to be on the same starting line. Now they were on completely different levels. Ling Xiaoxiao's assistant actually ran to Lu Chen's Cheba to stir up trouble. It was both surprising and not that unbelievable. The technical fans found a very complete chain of evidence, and the final direction was clear and unmistakable. It could be considered a very successful human flesh operation, so it was published on the Cheba to denounce it. In this pinned post, someone also pointed out that it was very likely that Ling Xiaoxiao used his assistant's account to scold Lu Chen. What a clown. After reading the post, Lu Chen could not help but shake his head, feeling that it was very funny. He said, "Don't worry about it, let's go eat." In Lu Chen's heart, this trivial matter was really not as important as him eating with his sister. Ling Xiaoxiao? He had almost forgotten this name. Chapter 311. Lu Chen's fan group was first established when he was a host of Whale TV. Most of the groups that like to watch live broadcasts on the internet are otaku. Although the general public opinion of otaku is not high, they are young, single, like games, have been on the internet for a long time, lack of social work experience and so on. But there are also strong otaku, and that is technical otaku. Perhaps in reality technical otaku do not even have the ability to kill a chicken, but in the internet world, there is no shortage of people who can call the wind and summon the rain. Heavy Metal Element obviously underestimated the power of Lu Chen's fan group. He thought that no one would recognize him with a sock puppet. As a result, his true identity was found out. The real name of Heavy Metal Element is Gavin Gavin. He is Ling Xiaoxiao's latest assistant. Techno geeks follow the vine to the melon through various internet clues and dig out his identity and origin. With conclusive evidence, Lu Chen's fans immediately bombarded Ling Xiaoxiao's blog and post bar. Some people even made human flesh pictures and posted them on the internet. They took screenshots of all the remarks of Heavy Metal Element that ridiculed and attacked Lu Chen and used them as a weapon to slap Ling Xiaoxiao's face. Our Lu Chen won 2 big awards. Someone must be so jealous that his teeth fell off, right? Gee, I'm so jealous of him. There are so many villains in the entertainment industry. If you have the guts, come with me. What's the use of your assistant's sock puppet? Filthy, filthy and shameless. I hate this kind of sissy who backstabs people the most. People drifting in Jianghu, how can they not be stabbed? Fighting in the circle is simply commonplace. There are many star artists who fight each other on the internet, but few people like Ling Xiaoxiao run to Lu Chen's post bar to say sour words. Tien, not bad. That's right. Although the ID belongs to Ling Xiaoxiao's assistant Gavin, most people believe that it was Ling Xiaoxiao who posted it himself. They also listed the evidence, common words in the post, writing habits and so on. Originally it was not a big deal to use a sock puppet to make sarcastic remarks. Even saints would ridicule them. However, it would be very awkward to be exposed. When Lu Chen and Lu Shi went to eat, the latter also received several interview calls from the media. The noses of the entertainment reporters were extremely sensitive. When the storm started to blow up on the internet, they acted immediately. They wanted to ask for Lu Chen's opinion. It would be best if they could fiercely rebuke Ling Xiaoxiao. That way the gossip would be easy to write. Celebrities quarreling had always been entertainment reporters' favorite. What's more, one side was the current hot Lu Chen. Unfortunately, Lu Shi didn't give them a chance. No matter which website or newspaper reporter called, she politely replied to them. Never heard of such a thing, no comment, Lu Chen is busy with work. After being Lu Chen's agent for more than half a year, Lu Shi was really trained. She handled these reporters skillfully and easily on the phone, not revealing the slightest bit of information. Of course, if the reporters insisted on writing nonsense, there was nothing they could do about it. Their low moral integrity could make people dumbfounded. It wasn't until they sat down in a small private room in the restaurant that Lu Shi's phone finally stopped ringing. Lu Chen flipped through the menu and asked his sister, "What do you want to eat tonight? Do you want a filet mignon?" "I don't want to eat meat," Lu Shi said with lingering fear. "I've gained a few pounds. Let's have a pot of paella. The food here is pretty good." Lu Chen really wanted to say that paella was also very nutritious, but after thinking about it, he didn't want to pressure his sister. In the end, he had just picked 2 dishes when Lu Shi's phone rang again. Lu Chen was annoyed. "It's dinner time. Turn off your phone." Any success had a price. The price of being a star idol was losing a lot of ordinary people's happiness. Life and work were basically inseparable, and there was not much free time and space. He was still fine. He had already changed his mobile phone, and only his family and friends could be contacted. Lu Shi was miserable. She was on the phone all day long and she couldn't even have a peaceful meal. This was something that couldn't be helped. If no one really called, it could only mean that she was completely out of luck. Even so, those fly-like entertainment reporters were still very annoying. "Hello, Lu Chen Studio." Lu Shi put the phone to her ear and raised her right index finger to Lu Chen, indicating that she would take the last call. She said a few words to the person on the phone, and her expression became serious. Seeing this, Lu Chen couldn't help but put down the menu in his hand. After chatting with the other party for a while, Lu Shi ended the call. She shook her phone and asked with a smile, "Guess who called us?" Lu Chen sweated. "How can I guess? It should be a good thing." He knew it just by looking at Lu Shi's expression. She even said things like "welcome" and "see you tomorrow" to the other party. It was most likely a good thing had come knocking. Lu Shi smiled and said, "The representative of Korea's SPG Entertainment Company in China. He wants to buy the copyright of Autumn in My Heart." Koreans? Lu Chen was surprised. That was really a good thing. The domestic entertainment industry began to develop rapidly at the end of the last century. Foreign media and entertainment companies had their eyes on this huge market, and a large number of cultural products such as movies, TV series, music, and so on were imported, forming a great impact. Especially in Korea, which was a close neighbor of the mainland, the promotion of the cultural industry was great. The Korean wave formed by Korean dramas and groups swept through most of China, leaving a deep mark in the domestic entertainment industry. For example, the popular Little Fresh Meats in the entertainment industry were Korean pop idols. There was also the trainee system, the manager system, and so on. Many of them copied the routines and rules of Korea. In recent years, many domestic artists had gone to Korea for training, and a large number of Korean stars came to China to make money. Faced with such a situation, the insightful people in the industry were shouting loudly, and even proposed to boycott the Korean wave. In general, the peak of the Korean wave was basically over. The domestic entertainment industry's ability to imitate and learn was extremely strong. After learning from others, they would naturally have to show off their skills and not let the benefits flow out for nothing. However, that could only be regarded as consolidating the domestic base. Domestic stars had very little influence in Korea, and it was difficult for domestic movies and TV series to be introduced to Korea. The latter market was narrow and closed, with a strong sense of xenophobia. The imported films that had decent ratings in Korea were basically well-produced documentaries and historical films. SPG Entertainment was a large artist planning and management company in South Korea. It was one of the top 3 companies in the industry in terms of scale and strength. It had promoted its HOPSC and other groups to China and had many master-level songwriters and choreographers. Speaking of SPG Entertainment, there was no one in the domestic entertainment industry who did not know of it. Its representative in China actually came to visit in person, wanting to buy the copyright of Autumn in My Heart. If the news got out, it would not be a problem for it to make the entertainment headlines. Returning to Japan and Korea was the dream of many people in the industry. When Lu Chen first created Autumn in My Heart, He had considered the possibility of the series being exported to Korea in advance. That was because in his dream world, the original Autumn was one of the most classic Korean dramas. That was why he did not even change the names of the characters in the series, and that was the hidden ambition. He did not talk about principles, nor did he talk about winning glory for the country. If Autumn in My Heart could enter the Korean market, then he could use this springboard to export it to Japan, and then enter the Southeast Asian market. In other words, the Korean market was the best touchstone. Once it was successful, it would represent vast benefits. Therefore, when he heard this news, Luchin was really happy. SPG, KG, and Han-E, the three major Korean entertainment companies, all had offices in Beijing. SPG Entertainment was the first to come knocking. If it did not come, then Luchin could only consider using Chin Fei-er's connections to contact Korea's KGS TV station. But in this way he would be in a passive position in the negotiations. Asking for help and being asked were two completely different things. Lu Shi smiled and said, "I have already made an appointment with them. They will come over at 9:30 tomorrow morning." Luchin nodded and said, "Let's talk about it." After dinner, Luchin sent Lu Shi back to her place, and then returned to his apartment. He called Chin Fei-er. Chin Fei-er was one of the few celebrities in China who had a certain level of fame and influence in Korea. She had participated in many Sino-Korean music festivals organized by KGS TV station, and knew a lot about the situation there. As expected, when Luchin mentioned SPG, Chin Fei-er immediately smiled and said, "I know. SPG's representative in China is Park Young-ho. He has been in China for almost 10 years and is a real China expert." Luchin's heart skipped a beat and he asked, "What's his personality like?" Tomorrow's meeting would definitely involve specific negotiations. Although he really hoped to be able to broadcast Autumn in My Heart in Korea, he would not sign a contract that could only be described as humiliating. In the past, in order to promote their works in Japan and Korea, the contracts they signed were almost free, and they even proudly promoted their works in foreign markets. In the end, it was exposed and they lost face. Autumn in My Heart had to be sold and not sold cheaply. Chin Fei-er said, "I have dealt with him a few times and I have heard some things. This park representative is very familiar with the situation in our country. He has a strong personality and he can stand his ground and not waver." After listening to Chin Fei-er's description, Luchin felt a little troubled. That person was obviously not an easy person to negotiate with. Chin Fei-er said again, "Park Young-ho has a very good eye, otherwise he wouldn't have been in this position for so many years. Since he has his eyes on our TV series, we can still negotiate." "Good luck, young man." Luchin couldn't help but laugh. He put aside the topic and continued to talk sweet words to Chin Fei-er for more than 10 minutes. In the end, Chin Fei-er was so moved that she almost ran over. Chapter 312. Pu Jinghao's visit was very low-key. The representative of South Korea's SPG Entertainment Company in China only brought one assistant, and he came directly to visit. He was about 40 years old, slender and solemn. A pair of narrow eyes hidden behind black-rimmed glasses seemed to flash when he blinked, giving people the impression that he was shrewd and strong. A very difficult person to talk to. Combined with the information he heard from Chin Fei last night, Luchin made an intuitive judgment in his heart. Of course, on the surface he was very polite and enthusiastic. "Hello, Mr. Park. Welcome to my studio." Pu Jinghao held Luchin's hand, and a faint smile appeared on his serious face. "I've heard a lot about Mr. Luchin. Please forgive me for disturbing you." His Chinese was perfect. Apart from being a little stiff, it was hard to tell that he was Korean. Lu Shi smiled and said, "Mr. Park is too polite. Please come in and talk." "This is?" Pu Jinghao was a little surprised and his eyes fell on Lu Shi. Luchin introduced, "This is my agent and my sister, Lu Shi." "It's Miss Lu Shi." Pu Jinghao suddenly understood. He waved to the assistant next to him, and the latter immediately handed over a beautifully packaged box. "It's our first time meeting. This is a small gift. Please accept it, Miss Lu Shi." Lu Shi was stunned, but she still accepted the gift. "Thank you." Both parties sat down in the reception room, and Xiao Mei served the guests the tea that had been brewed. Pu Jinghao was not in a hurry to get down to business. Instead, he chatted with Lu Chen and Lu Shi. This was actually a negotiation technique. Through small talk, one could make people relax their vigilance, and then judge the other party's temper and even hobbies. Then, one could use a targeted negotiation strategy. Although Pu Jinghao looked serious when he came in, he talked about the interesting anecdotes in the entertainment industry. He also praised Lu Chen's original talent and thought that Lu Chen deserved to win the Best Newcomer and Best Composer of the Asian Chinese Top Songs chart. Pu Jinghao also attended the award ceremony of the Asian Chinese Music Chart and saw Lu Chen go on the stage to receive the award. Through this exchange, the two parties went from strangers to familiarizing themselves with each other. The atmosphere of the conversation was relaxed and warm. Although Lu Chen had always been wary of Pu Yongho, he had to admit that this middle-aged Korean was quite capable. His speech and mannerisms were impeccable. After talking about the Golden Melody Awards ceremony, Pu Jinghao talked about Autumn in My Heart. This is the best TV series I've seen this year. The representative from South Korea's SPG Entertainment was not stingy with his praises. Whether it's the plot, the graphics, or the soundtrack, they are all top-notch. I really hope that this drama can be imported to South Korea and be seen by our domestic audience. That's why I'm here. Speaking of this, Pu Jinghao looked extremely confident. Our SPG Entertainment has a good cooperative relationship with KBS and MBC. KBS and MBC were the number 1 and number 2 TV stations in South Korea. No matter which TV station Autumn in My Heart appeared on, it would be a great success. Different from China, South Korean audiences like to watch variety shows and TV series the most. Moreover, their young people were also used to watching these two shows on TV, unlike China, which had two major markets, the internet and the screen. South Korea's national TV series were phenomenal TV series. The ratings could even reach more than 50%, which was unimaginable in China now. It was about the same 20 to 30 years ago. To be honest, Pu Jinghao's attitude surprised Lu Chen and Lu Shi. As the saying goes, the buyer is the one who dislikes the goods. During negotiations, it was most common to deliberately lower the evaluation of the other party's goods. Very few people would praise the other party first. However, when it came to the specific terms, both of them realized that they were too naive. Pu Jinghao's copyright fee for Autumn in My Heart was 800 million won. It sounded like a huge sum, but in fact, it was less than 5 million in domestic currency. As an imported TV series, SPG Entertainment was a middleman. They would definitely make a profit if they sold it to the TV station. Considering the difficulty of entering the South Korean market, this price was really not bad. In the past, there was a large domestic film and television company that invested over 100 million to shoot a 45-episode historical drama. It was sold to South Korea for only 500 million won. Later, it was revealed that the middleman's rebate was as high as 200 million. Autumn in My Heart only had 20 episodes. Even if it was very popular in China, it was definitely worth publicizing to be able to sell it to South Korea at such a price. However, there were conditions. Pu Jinghao also had his eyes on Lu Chen's new TV series this year and made a request to invest. His appetite was not small. Logically speaking, it was a good thing to have investment, but it also depended on the situation. The super high ratings of Autumn in My Heart, and the impact it has caused in the domestic film and TV market have made Lu Chen's new drama a hot cake in the eyes of countless people. There are a lot of people rushing to send money, and there is no worry about investors at all. With Autumn in My Heart as the bottom, as long as the new TV series wasn't too bad, with just Lu Chen as the main character, profits were inevitable. There was no need to worry about losing money at all. Moreover, once they could invest in it, they would have the right to speak about the actors' roles, which was also a great benefit. SPG Entertainment also trained artists in China and had also participated in the production of many films and variety shows. They deeply understood the doorway. Today they sent Pu Jinghao to Lu Chen's studio to discuss the introduction of Autumn in My Heart. The drunkard had ulterior motives. Regarding Pu Jinghao's request, Lu Chen and Lu Shi looked at each other. They couldn't agree to such a condition. With the success of Autumn in My Heart, Lu Chen was now full of confidence. He didn't mind bringing in investors in the new TV series, but SPG Entertainment wasn't a good choice. Lu Chen knew very well that compared to a big company like SPG Entertainment, even if it was a foreign company, his own studio was at a clear disadvantage. Once they brought in the other party's investment, it was very likely that they would be held back. Most importantly, his current development was first and foremost based in China. It was good to be able to open up the Korean market, but it would be stupid if he lost his own interest because of this. After thinking about it, Lu Chen said to Pu Jinghao, "Mr. Park, I'm sorry but I can't agree to this condition." Lu Chen's straightforward refusal made Pu Jinghao unable to help, revealing a look of astonishment. He came full of confidence, believing that he would definitely be able to convince Lu Chen, SPG's investment and the temptation of bringing in Korea. Who could resist it? In the end, he never expected Lu Qin to refuse so decisively. Chapter 313. Business negotiations were not child's play, especially when it involved high interests. It often took a battle of wits and courage to reach a final compromise or give up. SPG Entertainment, or rather Pu Zhenghao, was sincere about importing Autumn in My Heart to South Korea. However, his appetite was too big for Lu Qin to accept. However, the specific conditions could be discussed. Pu Zhenghao's first visit was obviously more to test the waters. Of course, he would be very satisfied if they could negotiate directly. However, Lu Qin's firm attitude towards his own interests had hit a wall. If it was the executives of other Japanese and Korean entertainment companies, they might be very unhappy. Many of them were used to being high and mighty and had a high attitude towards the domestic entertainment industry. They thought that they could casually throw out something and it would attract a group of people to fight over it. Pu Zhenghao was different. He had settled down and worked in China for more than 10 years. He was well versed in China's culture and had a deep understanding of the domestic entertainment industry. Therefore, he knew very well about Lu Qin's strength. In the eyes of the representative of SPG Entertainment's China office, Lu Qin was China's Kim Hyun-ping. Kim Hyun-ping was the most famous artist in South Korea from 2000 to 2010. He had amazing talent and had composed many classic music works. Moreover, he was tall and handsome. The television dramas and movies he had filmed had caused a sensation and had a wide influence throughout Asia. However, 6 years ago, Kim Hyun-ping was not satisfied with the South Korean entertainment industry. He also looked down on the China market and ambitiously went to Hollywood. In the end, he did not make a name for himself there for a few years and became a special supporting role set up by the American film company for the Asian market. He lost a lot of popularity in South Korea. Lu Qin was very similar to Kim Hyun-ping, who had just debuted. They were both talent shows. They were both tall and handsome, both talented, both outstanding musicians, and both young and energetic. Compared to the narrow and competitive market in South Korea, China's entertainment market was too big. It was like a vast ocean that could accommodate the growth of a dragon. Therefore, as long as Lu Qin did not court death, his development potential was limitless. SPG Entertainment being able to establish a good relationship with such a person was equivalent to investing in a stock with high potential. That was why Pu Yong-ho offered a high price of 800 million won to purchase Blue in the first round of negotiations to show his sincerity. The conditions he added later were more of a test. It didn't matter if they couldn't come to an agreement. As long as they didn't fall out with each other, they could continue to negotiate. The so-called bottom line was tested step by step like this. It was precisely with such a position that the negotiations between the two sides were relatively harmonious, and there was no situation of swords being drawn. Pu Zhenghao sat in Lu Qin's studio for 2 hours before leaving. After sending off the representative of SPG Entertainment's China office, Lu Qin felt as if he had just finished a battle. He was a little tired. Chen Fei-er's understanding of Pu Zhenghao was still too simple. This old fox was really hard to deal with. His character was tough, but it wasn't just tough. There was a hint of gentleness in his toughness that hid needles and silk floss. Lu Qin said to Lu Shi, "If there's a chance in the future, I want to poach him." Lu Shi was speechless. She had been Lu Qin's agent for more than half a year, and she knew more and more about the entertainment industry, so she knew very well that a character like Pu Zhenghao was not someone her studio could afford to poach. The domestic entertainment industry was greatly affected by South Korea. Many big companies also poached people from their South Korean counterparts, such as arrangers, choreographers, producers, directors, etc., and there were artists directly. But in general, those who could be poached were basically second or third-rate characters. Pu Zhenghao was the representative of SPG Entertainment's China office, a real high-level figure. If he wanted to change his tune, he would only choose a big company like Flying Stone Records. How could he come to Lu Qin's studio? Lu Qin's idea was too naive. Of course, Lu Qin saw Lu Shi's disapproval. He didn't explain in detail because now was not the time. It was true that Pu Zhenghao was a senior executive of SPG Entertainment, but this senior executive of SPG was a marginalized figure. He worked hard to expand the market in China. He had worked hard even if he had no credit, but his position had never been moved. Because Pu Zhenghao was not a direct descendant of the current chairman of SPG, but a former confidant. South Korea's corporate system was learned from Japan. When South Korea's economy took off in the 1980s and 1990s, it played a very important role, giving birth to more than a dozen giant companies such as the famous Samsung. But since entering the new century with the rapid development of new industries, South Korea's corporate system has been severely impacted by the new culture. The rigid bureaucratic internal management and the promotion path based on seniority, coupled with the power struggle at the top, have caused many companies to close down or face difficult predicaments. SPG was one of the top entertainment companies in South Korea. It had not been established for a long time, and it was also a family-run enterprise. After the chairman who originally appreciated Pu Jinghao abdicated, he was pressed down in SPG's China office. In fact, in terms of contributions, Pu Jinghao was fully qualified to return to South Korea to be promoted to a higher position. In addition, Pu Jinghao was not a pure Korean. His father was a northeastern Korean who had immigrated to South Korea in his early years. This insider information was revealed to Lu Qin by Qin Fei. She had specially inquired about it from an insider, and it was considered an open secret in a certain circle. Many people did not believe that Pu Jinghao would stay at SPG forever, but so far he had not shown any signs of leaving SPG. Through the previous conversation, Lu Qin had the most intuitive impression of Pu Jinghao, and admired his shrewdness. If such a person who was proficient in Chinese and Korean could be recruited, the benefits were self-evident, especially since Lu Qin had always had the ambition to look to the Asian market. Of course, Lu Qin's studio was still too weak now, and it was a little unrealistic to covet a talent like Pu Jinghao, but opportunities were always given to those who were prepared. Lu Qin said, "Sister, we must negotiate for the location of the art park. It doesn't matter if the price is high." Setting up roots in the art park was a very important step for the studio to expand. It was not just a matter of a larger area, but the most important thing was the location and environment, which were very suitable for the studio's survival and development. Lu Shi nodded. She had already arranged to talk with Yu Jizhong in the afternoon. When it came to the specific contract negotiations, Lu Qin did not participate. However, the subletting went smoothly. Lu Qin brought Chen Xian over to talk with Yu Jizhong for the whole afternoon, and they signed the official contract. The New Era Art Center in Beijing, which was also known as the Art Park, was completed in 2001. The properties there were limited uses, and some of them had been bought out by companies while the rest were for rent. The place of Yu Jizhong's art studio was rented from the management committee of the art center, but it was a long-term contract, and he had the priority to renew it. Now he was transferring part of the lease to Lu Qin. This was in line with the rules. As long as it did not exceed the limited scope of business, the management committee of the art park allowed subletting. However, the price of Yu Jizhong's original lease was definitely different from the current one. After signing the contract, Lu Shi made a budget that night, calculating the cost of moving the studio. The rent, decoration, recording studio construction, etc., would cost at least 15 million yuan. Then he was entrusting Li Mubai to help him approve the charity fund. The registered capital of 20 million yuan needed to be spent 10 million yuan, and this part of the money could not be touched according to the regulations. In this way 25 million yuan would be spent, and a new drama would be released this year. The studio's investment would definitely account for a large proportion, so the money earned by Autumn in My Heart would be far from enough. Lu Shi also specially reminded Lu Qin that he signed the contract of Qin Fei's transfer of the house. Even if he paid off 30 million yuan in 5 years, he still had to pay back 6 million yuan a year. In this way Lu Qin found that he had become a poor man again and he owed a lot of debt. Ha ha ha. After listening to Lu Chen's complaints, Qin Fei laughed very happily on the phone. Then you should write a few more songs for others and then you can earn back the money. As a representative of the new generation of domestic singer-songwriters, and also won 2 awards in the Asian Chinese music chart, Lu Qin was definitely a hot figure in the pop music world, and there were many people who wanted to buy songs from him. If Lu Qin could really make up his mind to write songs, it was really not a problem to earn tens of millions of yuan because in his memory, there were thousands of excellent music works. It was just that he never thought of being a song wholesaler, and he would not squander this precious wealth at will. On the one hand, it raised the threshold for song invitations, and on the other hand, it also screened the partners for cooperation. Now Lu Qin Studios' offer to the public was 500,000 yuan for a song, which reached the top level in the industry. This offer scared most people away and it also caused a lot of discussion in the circle. Qin Fei's teasing came from this. Lu Qin said with a smile, "Don't think about others for the time being. Do your album well first. That's the most important thing." "That's really nice. Do you want me to lend you some money?" A woman who fell in love could not listen to sweet words. Qin Fei's EQ and IQ were both coaxed by these words. "You don't have to worry about that contract. It doesn't matter if you give me money later." If Lu Qin was determined to be a gigolo who lived off a woman, he would definitely be very successful. But he just wanted to put on airs, No need, I can still do it without writing songs. Of course, Lu Chen's self-confidence was not without reason because as a star, especially a popular star artist, has an important channel to make a lot of money, that is, brand endorsement. And among all the brands that are currently interested in cooperating with Lu Chen, Zhonghua Automobile is undoubtedly the largest. Chapter 3:14. Lu Chen is very cautious about brand endorsements. Many stars, especially those new artists who have suddenly become popular in recent years, often adopt the strategy of draining the pond to fish when it comes to brand endorsements. They desperately work for notices and advertisements, which is jokingly called double high advertisement, in the circle. The emergence of the double high phenomenon, on the one hand, stems from the pressure of some entertainment agencies on contracted artists, squeezing out as much profit as possible during the contract period, and not looking for the future. There are also some artists who are willing to do this, because the competition in the entertainment industry is too fierce. Most artists are under great pressure to survive. If they don't work hard to make money when they are popular, what else can they get once they are out of it? So they desperately accept all kinds of advertisements, even those high-risk endorsements. However, artists who are based on long-term development are often very cautious and thoughtful about brand endorsements. Lu Chen listened to Chen Fei-er's opinion on brand endorsements. Chen Fei-er is one of the current domestic advertising queens. She endorses domestic and international big brands, with at least tens of millions of endorsement fees a year. She has rich experience in this regard. The advice that Chen Fei-er provided to Lu Chen was first to choose carefully, such as financial products, medicine and healthcare products, medical and medical equipment, agricultural products such as seeds, pesticides, breeding and so on. It is best not to touch them. The risk of these advertising endorsements is relatively high. Once there is a problem with the product, it will often affect the reputation of the endorser, and even cause trouble in lawsuits. There are not one or two stars who have been sued or stumbled because of careless endorsement. Even Chen Fei-er almost suffered in this regard, so she is now very careful in choosing advertisements. Naturally, she does not want Lu Chen to repeat the mistakes of others. So far, Lu Chen has mainly endorsed two brands. One is Whale TV, the other is Senki Apparel, and the cooperation between the two has been very successful. To put it bluntly, the benefits that Lu Chen's endorsement bring to the two companies far exceed the remuneration he receives. For this reason, Whale TV and Senki Apparel intend to renew next year, and the new contract will inevitably rise. With the popularity of Autumn in My Heart, the number of brands that came to Lu Chen for advertising cooperation suddenly increased, and the most important one was undoubtedly Zhonghua Automobile. Zhonghua Automobile is one of the oldest and most prestigious domestic automobile brands. Its predecessor can be traced back to 70 years ago. The brand Zhonghua was established with the new China. In the early 1950s, Zhonghua Jeep once drove across the Yalu River with the Liberation Truck, and made great achievements in the war to resist the United States and aid Korea, becoming a well-known brand in China. However, since the reform and opening up in the 1980s, foreign brands of cars have entered the domestic market, and the market share of Zhonghua Motors has shrunk dramatically, almost to the verge of bankruptcy. With the support of the country, this national brand finally survived the most difficult period and was reborn through the introduction of technology, independent research and other methods. After Lu Chen's debut, the first car he bought in Beijing was Zhonghua's newly launched X7. This gasoline-electric hybrid urban SUV could be described as cheap and good, and it was currently driven by Lu Xi. And it was precisely the Zhonghua X7 that Lu Chen bought that made Zhonghua Automobile choose him as the new brand spokesperson. At least that's a very important reason. Of course, as a car company with an annual output of tens of billions, Zhonghua Automobile is very cautious in the choice of brand spokesperson. They chose Lu Chen first because the latter's influence among young people is growing. In addition, Lu Chen's image has always been very good since his debut. Lu Chen won the championship of Singing China, which was also a small factor for Zhonghua Automobile to choose him. Then he participated in Beijing TV's National Day Party and created a positive theme work like, I Love You China. He once bravely saved people regardless of danger, and also raised donations to help fans. Now he is preparing to set up a leukemia charity fund. With all these factors, it's really not a problem to be named one of the top 10 outstanding youths at the provincial and municipal levels. In contrast, how much Lu Chen's solo album sold and how high the ratings of his TV series were not the key factors. With harsh requirements, the treatment is naturally generous. Zhonghua Automobile offered Lu Chen a 2-year contract of 12 million yuan. Because of the many detailed terms involved, the contract could not be finalized in a day or two. Zhonghua Automobile hoped that Lu Qin could participate in the promotion and publicity activities of their newly launched R-Class station wagon. The specific requirement was to shoot a commercial, and Lu Qin was asked to tailor-make a song for the commercial. Because of the importance of this contract, Lu Qin, together with his studio, focused his current work on Zhonghua Automobile. Lu Shi continued to negotiate with the other party for the most favorable conditions, while he himself was working on creative ideas for Zhonghua Automobile's new product. Station wagons are a derivative of cars derived from the trend of people advocating nature and being keen on tourism. Compared with SUVs and MPVs, their purchase price and use cost are lower, and they have a more dexterous body which is easy to drive and park. Therefore, they play an important role in the life of people in economically developed countries, especially in Europe. However, in China, station wagons are a niche model. They have not been introduced at all because they are not suitable for the domestic market demand. However, with the improvement of the material living standards of domestic consumers, it has become a new fashion for urban car owners to take family or friends, drive a station wagon, and go on a long trip together on holidays. Especially for young people, driving a station wagon to travel is a very romantic and pretentious thing, and it has been rendered dreamlike by many literary and artistic youths. Similar car travel articles can often be seen in some fashion magazines. Zhonghua Automobile is aiming at this emerging market and launched its first station wagon, the R100. Lu Qin first spent 2 days digesting and studying the relevant information sent by Zhonghua Automobile, and then searched for and browsed a lot of advertisements for foreign station wagons on the internet. During this period, he wrote a song and gave it to Wang Jing to arrange, and let the Nirvana band practice accompaniment. Finally, it took a week for Lu Qin to create and edit a music video to be used as the commercial demonstration of the R100. It was equivalent to doing part of the work that belonged to the advertising company. After that, Lu Qin asked Lu Shi to contact Zhonghua Automobile and demonstrate this music video advertisement to them. Chapter 315. Beijing, CBD Central Business District, Immerse Advertising Company. The morning sun shone through the large format floor-to-ceiling windows and fell into Zhuang Jingwei's office, bright and warm. The creative director of Immerse Advertising Company leaned back in the soft chair, picked up the coffee that his assistant had just brewed and took a sip, and his whole body seemed to warm up. But the mellow coffee didn't help to relieve the depression in his heart, and his frowning eyebrows never relaxed. He didn't even have the mood to pick up the newspaper that he used to read every day. Tap, tap. The office door was gently knocked. Zhuang Jingwei put down his coffee cup and said in a deep voice, "Come in." The door was pushed open, and a beautiful female assistant leaned in and said, "Director, the people from Zhonghua Automobile and Lu Qin Studio are here. The general manager asked you to attend the meeting." Zhuang Jingwei nodded and said, "I see." He picked up his coffee cup again. The female assistant hesitated for a moment, but still reminded him, "Director, the general manager asked you to go there immediately." Zhuang Jingwei stared at her and said, "I know, you only have the general manager in your eyes now, and you don't have me, right?" The 40-year-old man's fierce appearance was quite scary, but the female assistant was not afraid at all. She stuck out her tongue and said with a smile, "I have to listen to your words and I have to listen to the general manager's words. I'll go with you. I heard that Lu Qin himself is also here." Speaking of Lu Qin, her eyes were shining. "I don't know if he is as handsome in real life as he is on TV. There is no doubt that she is also a fan of Autumn in My Heart." Zhuang Jingwei rubbed his eyebrows, waved his hand and said, "Go, go, I'll go." Zhuang Jingwei's assistant is his niece, who is still a senior intern. She just wants to learn something from him. The girl has been spoiled by her family and is not afraid of him. It's useless to scold her with a straight face. So, Zhuang Jingwei decided to send her away when her internship period is over. He really can't afford to serve her. And when he heard the name Lu Qin, Zhuang Jingwei's mood was a little worse. Who is Lu Qin? He has only heard of him by chance before. Now he has understood him clearly. He knows that the other party is a musical talent, a new generation of singer, and has just starred in a TV series with popular ratings which has fascinated his niece. Tian, as the creative director of Immerse Advertising Company, Zhuang Jingwei has known and dealt with a lot of star artists, but he has never seen Lu Qin overconfident. The cause of the matter was the contract between Zhonghua Automobile and Advertising Company. The domestic top 100 companies entrusted the advertising business to Immerse Advertising Company to the new station wagon launched this year, and selected Lu Qin as the brand ambassador. It was very common for stars to endorse advertisements. After understanding the needs of the clients, Meisher Advertising began to work on relevant advertising plans. The first focus was the commercial for the Zhonghua Vision R100 station wagon. When Zhuang Jingwei racked his brains for this commercial and had a preliminary idea, there was suddenly news from Zhonghua Automobile that Lu Qin had personally edited and produced an R100 commercial demo. When Zhuang Jingwei was racking his brains for this commercial and had a preliminary idea, news suddenly came from Zhonghua Automobile that Lu Qin had personally edited and produced an R100 commercial demo. Not only that, but Zhonghua Automobile hoped that Meisher Advertising would take Lu Qin's creativity seriously, and held a tripartite discussion meeting for this group of poor people, and the location was in Meisher Company. Zhuang Jingwei felt that his professional ability had been seriously challenged, and he couldn't bear it. If Lu Qin originally majored in art design and advertising, it would be understandable. But as far as Zhuang Jingwei knew, the entertainment industry rookie majored in computer science in college. Computers and advertising are not completely unrelated, but they are really two different things. Now he has openly brought the so-called commercial demo to Meisher Company. What's the difference between that and going to the door to challenge them? If it's an insider, he can pinch his nose and admit it, but a layman. Most importantly, Zhuang Jingwei's painstaking creativity may be wasted. How can he not be depressed and annoyed? In the advertising industry, the most frightening thing is to encounter clients who don't understand and insist on their own opinions, interfering with the creative concept of the company's design, and finally come up with something nondescript. But even if he is annoyed, Zhuang Jingwei can't be willful. Unless he gives up the job, he can't disobey the general manager's order. But on the way to the conference room, he secretly made up his mind to make his voice heard. The conference room of Meisher Advertising Company was almost full of people. Zhuang Jingwei met the person in charge of Zhonghua Automobile, his colleagues, and Lu Qin. Among all of them, Lu Qin is undoubtedly the most conspicuous. He is tall, young and handsome with a warm and kind smile. Even if he is prejudiced against him, Zhuang Jingwei has to admit that he is a very charming star. This kind of star has his own aura which can make those fans fascinated. For example, the girl sitting next to the general manager, her eyes were shining like stars, and she almost rushed over to ask for an autograph and a group photo. Director Zhuang is here. Seeing Zhuang Jingwei come in, Kai Jin, the general manager of Meisher Advertising Company, waved and said, "Come here and sit down." Kai Jin, 35 years old, joined Meisher Advertising Company 7 years ago. The elite who returned from overseas studies rose all the way to the general manager's throne and also brought Meisher into the ranks of the 10 4A advertising companies in Beijing. In terms of management skills and ability, Zhuang Jingwei also admires her. He sat down in his seat. Kai Jin gave Zhuang Jingwei a discreet look. Zhuang Jingwei understood what she meant. Kai Jin's management in Meisher has always adhered to an important concept in the service industry, that is, there are two elements in treating customers. The first is, the customer is always right, and the second is, if the customer is wrong, please refer to the first point. This is in conflict with Zhuang Jingwei's professional concept, but it turns out that Kai Jin is right. Advertising is like dancing with shackles. It is necessary to find the most suitable balance point under the heavy shackles of policies and regulations and customer requirements, and then jump out a beautiful dance. There is no doubt about the importance of Zhuang Jingwei's automobile to Meisher Advertising Company. Kai Jin is obviously worried that Zhuang Jingwei, who is a little stubborn, will conflict with the customer's requirements in the creative concept of the R100 commercial. When all the people attending the meeting were present, Kai Jin asked people to close the door of the conference room and turned on the computer projection equipment. She straightened up and said with a smile, "Today, our Meisher Advertising Company is very happy and honored to organize this demonstration discussion of the Zhonghua Vision R100 station wagon commercial. First of all, we welcome Manager Chen Hong from the Publicity Department of Zhonghua Automobile Group. The general manager of Meisher Advertising Company has a dignified and delicate appearance, and speaks in a soft voice, which makes people feel like they are bathing in the spring breeze, but no one who is familiar with her dares to underestimate her ability. Welcome Mr. Lu Qin, who is also the star spokesperson of the Vision R100. Lu Qin stood up and bowed slightly to the crowd. He edited and produced the MV commercial for the station wagon he endorses, which is not what Zhuang Jingwei thought. This meeting was proposed by the people of Zhonghua Automobile after watching the demo film. The reason why the discussion was held at Meisher Advertising Company was that this part of the advertising business was entrusted to this 4A advertising company, and Zhonghua Automobile also needed Meisher Advertising's professional advice. When the polite applause of welcome disappeared, Lu Qin continued, At the request of Zhonghua Automobile, I wrote a song for the first commercial of the Vision R100. In addition, I also used the material on the internet to edit and make a MV for this song." He smiled and said, "I'm a layman when it comes to advertising. This music video is very crude, and it only represents a little of my personal thoughts. So, I hope that Meta TV can give us their professional opinion so that we can work together to complete this collaboration. Thank you." This time, the applause in the conference room was a lot more sincere and warm, and even Zhuang Jingwei applauded a few times. Lu Chen's words gave him a better impression of the former. At least Lu Chen was very polite. Although his behavior was a little excessive, his attitude was modest and he did not take it for granted that he was in a dominant position. That was in line with his identity as a brand spokesperson, not a planner. After Lu Chen's speech ended, Kai Jin asked his assistant to turn off the lights in the conference room and play the demo through the projection. The general manager of Meisher Advertising was also very curious. He didn't know what kind of work Lu Chen had come up with that could make Zhonghua Automobile put aside the preliminary plan proposed by him and choose a layman's creative idea. The next moment, a colorful picture appeared silently on the projection screen. The dark, vast and empty prairie appeared in everyone's sight. In the lens, a straight road went straight to the distant sky, which made people feel an indescribable shock. Those who liked travel or scenery recognized at a glance that this was the famous Qinghai-Tibet Sky Road. Then the camera slowly pulled up, and an off-road vehicle appeared in the picture, driving alone into the distance. The prelude of the music sounded softly, and there was Lu Chen singing. It was as if it came from the sky. "Wandering on the road, are you going via? Fragile, proud, that was once my appearance. Seething, restless. Where are you going via? Enigmatic, silent. Story, are you really listening?" Light and shadow flashed and the picture switched. People sitting in the conference room unconsciously fell into the unique atmosphere created by the MV. The name of this song was The Ordinary Road. Note, The Ordinary Road lyrics, Han Han, Pu Shu/composer, Pu Shu. Chapter 316. I've crossed mountains and seas and passed through a sea of people. I've had everything in the blink of an eye. It's all gone. I've been lost, disappointed, and lost all direction, until I see that ordinary is the only answer. The Ordinary Road was specially made by Lu Chen for the Zhonghua Vision R100 station wagon. It was a typical trip-hop chord breakdown, and the whole song had a strong folk style. The slow lyrical rhythm, clear voice, and low voice made the song full of a touch of warmth and sadness. In the music video edited by Lu Chen using online materials, the car and scenery are the eternal theme. The constantly changing scenery in the picture, as well as his voice entering the ear, and every word entering the heart, reflect each other, showing a strange charm, making people's state of mind can't help but follow the speeding car into the distance. It could let the listener enjoy the feeling of peace and youth, and find the direction of the future in sadness and confusion. I'm just like you, like him, like the weeds and wildflowers, inexorably, this is me, the only way to go. Time is silent, and so on. Tomorrow is in Hia, the road the wind blows is still far, where's your story? Surprise and a trace of confusion froze in Zhuang Jingwei's eyes. Before watching this commercial music video, the creative director of Meisher Advertising had a strong doubt about Lu Chen's work. He even couldn't wait to teach Lu Chen a lesson, to let the latter know that not everyone can step in the professional field. But halfway through the music video, Zhuang Jingwei fell silent. From the point of view of commercial production alone, this music video was a mess. The editing was very amateurish, and the transition of the picture was very unnatural. It was completely a novice work. If it was made by a technical staff of Meisher Advertising, Zhuang Jingwei would definitely fire him immediately. However, Zhuang Jingwei was not stupid enough to use this point to attack Lu Chen. Because this was a demo just like a script sketch used in a movie. The technology was completely irrelevant. The key was creativity, conception, and the theme expressed. On these three most important points, Zhuang Jingwei could not find any big problems. The soundtrack was too good and the theme song was too good. The target group of the Zhonghua Vision R100 touring car was white-collar elites between the ages of 25 and 40 in the city. They had a certain economic foundation and career, and pursued spiritual freedom and enjoyment. Traveling by car was also one of the characteristics of this social class. Lu Chen's idea for the commercial, or rather the MV, was undoubtedly able to hit the mark of their spirit. It was sincere and magnanimous enough to portray an extraordinary life journey. The lyrics were deliberately rough, and the rap at the end of the song went straight to the heart, truly expressing the feelings of the target group. It was a wonderful song of life with rich emotions. Even Zhuang Jingwei couldn't help but want to go out for a walk as he listened and watched. Unlike ordinary car commercials, there was no explanation of the car model's advantages and configuration, and there was no introduction of the product itself. The film reflected a strong emotion. This was the only way to move people's hearts. At the end of the film, as the song disappeared, the screen turned completely dark, and a paragraph of advertising slogans silently condensed. The body has not moved, but the heart is already far away. Then the advertising slogan faded away, and the logos of Zhonghua Automobile and Vision R100 quietly appeared. The picture froze. The conference room was silent, and time seemed to freeze at this moment. After a while, no one knew who took the lead in applauding, and then the applause rang out. Half of the people present were managers of Immerse advertising. As practitioners in the advertising industry, even if they didn't think as deeply and carefully as Zhuang Jingwei, they could still judge the quality of an advertisement. From a creative point of view alone, the idea of this MV was not particularly novel and unique. Even if it was carefully produced at a huge cost, it was estimated that it would not win any awards in foreign awards. However, its theme idea and product fit extremely well, especially the theme song, which was perfect. It would definitely be an excellent advertising work in the domestic market. If Lu Chen's popularity was taken into account, its influence could not be underestimated. What made the advertising people, including Zhuang Jingwei, speechless was that the idea and editing of this demo was actually a singer-artist, not an elite in their industry. This made people feel ashamed. After applauding, Kai Jin asked Zhuang Jingwei, "Director Zhuang, do you have any opinion?" Zhuang Jingwei thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, "The idea are very good, the theme song is first class, and the general direction does not need to be changed. As long as it is reshot according to the idea, it will definitely be an excellent advertisement. I have full confidence in this." He looked at Lu Chen and sighed sincerely, "Mr. Lu Chen, it's an honor for me and our Immerse advertising to cooperate with an excellent artist like you." Zhuang Jingwei's words made everyone's faces smile. The people in Zhonghua Automobile had already seen the demo, and now the negotiation needed professional advice. Getting the praise and approval of Immerse advertising proved that their vision was right and they had chosen the right brand ambassador. Time is money, and the sooner the commercial is shot, the better it is for the promotion of the new model. Zhuang Jingwei's colleagues have never seen him so convinced by a layman before, and they all feel that it's interesting, and they can talk about it as an interesting story in the future. As for Lu Shi, who accompanied Lu Chen, she was even happier. In this way, the endorsement contract of Zhonghua Automobile will be stable. She is also proud of Lu Chen. With one song and one edited MV, Lu Chen easily convinced the two powerful collaborators. Lu Chen said with a smile, "Thank you. It's also my honor to cooperate with Zhonghua Automobile and Immerse advertising." There was no tit-for-tat debate, no scheming quarrel. The atmosphere of the discussion between the three parties was very harmonious. The representative of Zhonghua Automobile confirmed the idea and creativity of the commercial on the spot, and then talked about the specific shooting issues. Lu Chen used online materials for editing. Most of them are movies from home and abroad. None of them can be used because of copyright issues. In addition to the alternative purchased materials, many shots need to be shot. As one of the protagonists, Lu Chen is naturally indispensable, and communication in advance is very important. The next day, Lu Chen Studio signed a formal endorsement contract with Zhonghua Automobile. 2 years of 12 million, not including the remuneration for work outside the contract. For example, this song, The Ordinary Road, Zhonghua Automobile needs to pay an additional 500,000 to buy the copyright. With the first endorsement fee in the account, the financial situation of the studio has finally improved a lot. The shooting of a new TV series has also been put on the agenda. But before that, Lu Chen has an important event to participate in, that is, the 72-hour music festival. Chapter 317. February 22nd is the Lantern Festival. On the 15th day of the first lunar month, the Lunar New Year's festival is officially over, and major colleges and universities are about to open. The whole society will then re-enter the fast pace of daily life. After signing the endorsement contract with Zhonghua Automobile, Lu Shi helped Lu Chen win 2 advertising contracts with Thunderbird Watch and Lanjie Cosmetics, earning another 10 million. The funds for shooting the new drama are basically no longer a problem, but Lu Chen is not in a hurry to announce the shooting plan. On the day of the Lantern Festival, he came to his new home. The new house that Chen Fei transferred to Lu Chen is in the Ziqing Yuan district in Beijing. Zicheng Yuan was developed by Bandung, the leader of the domestic real estate industry. The location of the building is between the 3rd Ring Road and the 2nd Ring Road, not far from Yuyuantan Park. The construction was completed in 2007, and it is a real high-quality and high-priced property. The house is in room 1701 of Building 7, with a total of 300 square meters on the upper and lower floors, with a layout of 5 bedrooms, 2 living rooms and 3 bathrooms. Compared with the single apartment that Lu Chen is currently renting, the conditions are simply worlds apart. The most important thing is that the management of the Zicheng Yuan district is excellent. Lu Chen basically doesn't have to worry about being harassed by paparazzi. Of course, the property management fee is also quite expensive. Considering that the Zicheng Yuan district is also very close to the New Era Art Park, Lu Chen decided to move in after signing the sublease contract there. The house has been officially transferred to his name. Since Chen Fei-er has already renovated the house, he can move in directly as long as he brings his belongings over, which is very convenient. The decoration of the new house is very good. It can be seen that it was designed by a famous designer. The simple European style coupled with the rather artistic decoration makes people feel comfortable living here. There are 2 rooms on the 1st floor, a living room, a kitchen, a dining room and a bathroom. The living room is very large, and it is no problem to invite 3 or 5 friends to hold a small party. The kitchen and dining room are abnormally clean and have no signs of being used. The sofa, furniture, kitchen, bathroom and home appliances were all equipped with famous brands. Although Lu Chen did not know much about renovation, he could tell that Chen Fei-er had spent at least 2 or 3 million on this house. The price of a house in Zicheng Garden was at least 100,000 yuan. This house with a first-class floor and a first-class design was definitely a discount for him. It was truly the price of a friend. Of course, compared to the price at which she bought it, she made a huge profit. In recent years, the housing prices in the capital had been rising rapidly. Even outside the 5th Ring Road, the price was 20 to 30,000 yuan. It had reached a point where ordinary people could not afford it. If Lu Chen hadn't been lucky enough to embark on this path, he wouldn't have been able to afford a house in Ji Province, which was adjacent to the capital, let alone a house in Zicheng Park. I've only stayed here a few times, but I've arranged for people to clean it regularly so it's very clean. Chen Fei-er smiled as he pulled Lu Chen's hand and said, "I'll go upstairs and take a look." Today she brought Lu Chen to look at the house. She was so happy that it was as if she had just bought a big new house. As a music queen with an annual income of tens of millions or even hundreds of millions, Chen Fei-er simply had a soft spot for real estate. She never invested the money she earned into any financial products. Most of it was invested in real estate. She had many villas, commercial houses and shops under her name. Facts had proven that this conservative investment method had brought her huge profits that exceeded her own business. With money she could be willful. In addition, she had a wide network of contacts in the entertainment circle. Therefore, Chen Fei-er could control her career and fate in her own hands. She didn't need to rely on any management company. Compared to most artists, she lived more freely. As they walked up the spiral staircase, Chen Fei-er smiled mysteriously. "I've prepared a gift for you." Lu Chen was curious. "What gift?" Chen Fei-er giggled and didn't answer. Upstairs, it was another special world. The small hall connected to the staircase had been transformed into a small bar and tea room. Outside, there was a scenic balcony full of all kinds of green potted plants. People couldn't help but want to sit down and drink tea while reading a book. At the same time, they could also enjoy the bustling scenery of the capital. Opposite the small bar, there was a brand new upright piano. The golden harp logo branded on the body of the piano flashed with a faint light, clearly indicating its value. This expensive Steinway piano was a housewarming gift from Chen Fei-er to Lu Chen. Lu Chen was surprised. "Thank you." Chen Fei-er rolled her eyes at Lu Chen as if she was blaming him for being polite. Lu Chen chuckled, reached out and hugged Chen Fei-er's willowy waist, and bent down to kiss her soft lips. It was a long kiss full of emotion and affection. It didn't end until Chen Fei-er's face turned red. She pushed Lu Chen shyly and said, "Try the piano." Lu Chen nodded, sat in front of the piano, opened the lid and tried the timbre and intonation first. The timbre of the Steinway piano, which was worth hundreds of thousands of yuan, was excellent. Although the vertical model was not as good as the triangle model, it was already a luxury configuration for home use. The intonation had also been adjusted by professionals. At least, Lu Chen couldn't hear any problems. Although he had obtained countless precious memories in the dream world, Lu Chen had never thought of relying on these wealth to eat and wait for death. He had been working hard to improve his abilities in all aspects and had never stopped learning. For example, Lu Chen's original level was not much better than that of a beginner, but now it was not a big problem for him to take the amateur level 8 or 9 exam, and there was still a lot of room for improvement in the future. Putting aside the dream memories, Lu Chen was still very talented in music. Chen Feier said, "Play a song." Lu Chen asked, "I'll play and you'll sing?" Chen Feier thought for a moment and replied, "You play and sing by yourself and I'll record it for you." She really took out her mobile phone, turned on the recording function, and began to record Lu Chen. Lu Chen couldn't help laughing. He sat up straight, pressed his fingers on the smooth keys and said very seriously, "This song is for the most beautiful, intelligent and proud Miss Chen Feier." Chen Feier's hands couldn't help shaking. She held back her laughter, held the mobile phone again and continued to record. However, Lu Chen played the prelude. To Chen Feier's surprise, although the melody played by Lu Chen was very beautiful, it was very strange. This was a new work. Although she had long been accustomed to Lu Chen's seemingly endless musical inspiration, at this moment, Chen Feier still felt very surprised. This song was specially for her. Here, winter, leave, I wake up in a certain year and a certain month. I think, I wait, I look forward to, but the future can't be arranged for this. Cloudy day, evening, outside the car window there's a person waiting in the future. Looking left, right, forward, love has to turn a few corners to come. Who I meet, what kind of dialogue will I have, how far in the future the person I'm waiting for is, I hear the wind from the subway and the sea of people, I line up to hold the number plate of love. Beautiful melody, bright style, simple lyrics. Although there was a trace of melancholy and sadness in the lyrics, it was sung by Lu Chen extremely affectionate, more like the pursuit and persistence of love. Chen Feier was the only audience. Listening to this song, her eyes quietly appeared intoxicating softness. I fly forward, flying over a sea of time, we have also been hurt in love, I see that the entrance of the dream is a little narrow, I met you as the most beautiful accident. One day my mystery will be revealed. When Lu Chen sang, I met you as the most beautiful accident, he looked back at Chen Feier. Meeting you is the most beautiful accident. Chen Feier bit her lips, wanting to cry and laugh at the same time. She wanted to throw herself into his arms even more. She stopped recording, put down her phone and looked at Lu Chen's eyes. Their lingering feelings silently met in the air. Lu Chen only sang this song once. After singing, he stood up and asked Chen Feier, "Do you like it?" Chen Feier threw herself directly into his arms and couldn't wait to give him a hot kiss. After kissing for a long time, the two sat together on the sofa. Chen Feier leaned against Lu Chen's arms, playing with her phone and asked, "What's the name of this song?" Lu Chen replied, Meeting. Chen Feier chewed the name of the song softly and suddenly opened her mouth to sing, I fly forward, I fly across a sea of time, we have also been hurt in love, I see that the entrance of the road is a little narrow, I meet you as the most beautiful accident. Her memory was very good. She sang without missing a single word, and her pitch was also very accurate. Lu Chen was greatly impressed, because Chen Feier had heard the cover once, which was very close to the original singer in his memory, and her natural voice very well expressed the artistic conception of the song. Tian, the sound of nature means a lot. Do you think it's good for me to put this song in the new album? Lu Chen smiled and said, It's good that you like it. The song for Chen Feier's new album had been decided, but if she liked it, it didn't matter if she changed it. Chen Feier happily opened the video meeting that she had just recorded on her mobile phone and watched it again. After watching it, she suddenly had an idea. What do you think if I post this video on my blog? Lu Chen was stunned and then immediately smiled and said, It's good that you like it. This should have been a very private video. If it was posted on a blog, the relationship between the two would almost be semi-public, and it would definitely not be hidden. But what did it matter? It would happen sooner or later, and now was not the time to say that it was not the right time. The popularity of Autumn in My Heart made Lu Chen and Chen Feier the best couple in the eyes of fans, and many people on the internet shouted that they should be together. Hearing his answer, Chen Feier looked up at Lu Chen and asked, Really? Lu Chen nodded and said, Really? Chen Feier smiled, selected the title of the video, and forwarded it to her associated blog. After uploading it, she seemed to have completed a big thing. She threw the mobile phone away, then stood up and pulled Lu Chen and said, Let's go and see the bedroom. Note, meeting lyricist, E. Jiang/composer, Lin Yifeng. Chapter 318. The 300 square meter high-class apartment was a super luxury level, comparable to an ordinary villa. The space on the upper and lower floors was very large, and the master bedroom was no exception. It was connected to a bathroom and a cloakroom. The adjacent room had been renovated into a study, and even the computer was ready-made. Chin Feier was very careful. Although she had not lived in this house for many years, there were still a lot of traces of living there. She had deliberately changed the bedsheets, quilts, furnishings and other items, so that the bedroom did not look like a boudoir. But there was still a photo of her on the bedside table. The diva of the music industry was like a child showing off her favorite toy. She pulled Lu Qin around the 3 rooms upstairs and asked, "Do you like it?" Lu Qin hugged her and said with a smile, "I like it, but it's too big and empty to live alone." Chin Feier said, "You can ask Sister Lu Shi to come and live with you as well as Auntie and Lu Shui. In the future you can ask Lu Shui to come to Beijing to study. Even if her grades are not good, she can still go to a good university." Lu Qin sighed, "They won't come. In fact, you are still missing one person." Chin Feier was puzzled. "Who?" Lu Qin said with a smile, "Don't you think this house is missing a hostess?" Chin Feier suddenly understood, and her pretty face turned red. "What does that have to do with me?" Lu Qin showed a thoughtful look and said, "Do you think I don't have to pay the 30 million yuan I owe you if I bring you in?" Chin Feier said with a smile, "In your dreams. I regret letting you pay me in installments. Pay me back quickly." Lu Qin finally revealed his ferocious face. He pressed Chin Feier down on the soft big bed and said fiercely, "It's too late to regret. Now you are in my hands. No one can save you even if you shout yourself hoarse." Chin Feier shouted, "Help!" Pressing down on her graceful body, smelling her enchanting fragrance and listening to her soft and enchanting cries for help, Lu Qin could no longer restrain the passion in his heart, and once again deeply kissed her. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became incomparably charming. Just as the two of them were fooling around, the comments section of Chin Feier's Waves blog exploded. Chin Feier had more than 20 million fans on Waves blog. Usually, one of her blog posts would have tens of thousands of reposts and hundreds of thousands of comments. After Autumn in My Heart was broadcasted, it attracted a large number of Feier fans. There were more and more people paying attention to the movements of the heavenly queen of the music industry. Therefore, once the blog post titled Meeting was posted, it immediately attracted the attention of countless fans. When the fans clicked on the blog post, they found that the content was neither a selfie of Chin Feier, nor a sharing of work itineraries or life experiences. It was actually a video of Lu Qin playing and singing. Autumn in My Heart had set a record for the ratings of domestic TV series in recent years. It made Lu Qin and Chin Feier a trend to become domestic couple idols. The relationship between the two had always been one of the topics that fans liked to talk about. Some people said that Lu Qin and Chin Feier were teachers and friends. They were like sister and brother. They had a very good relationship, but they were not a real couple. Some people said that the two had been dating for a long time, but they had not made it public. In addition to some media speculation, Lu Qin and Chin Feier had not released any private photos to confirm this scandal. Lu Qin's name and photos have also appeared in Chin Feier's blog, but they are basically related to work, music, or the kind of friendship that looks very simple. Now, the blog post that Chin Feier posted was undoubtedly very unusual. The video in the blog post was undoubtedly shot by Chin Feier himself. The shooting technique was not very good, but because the phone was good, the video was still very clear. First of all, the scene was definitely not a public place. From beginning to end, there was only Lu Qin in the camera. This song is for the most beautiful, intelligent and proud Miss Chin Feier. Before he started playing the piano, Lu Qin's words were not like those of ordinary friends. They were full of love. Most importantly, when he was about to finish singing, he looked back at Chin Feier. The deep love in his eyes could be seen by anyone who was not blind. Meeting you is the most beautiful accident. Didn't this song sing Lu Qin's heart? Not to mention that Chin Feier took the initiative to upload the video to his blog. It was obvious that he wanted to announce their relationship. How could her fans not explode? He finally made it public. I knew it. Is this a public display of affection? It's killing the single dogs. 555 Feier is my goddess. Why do all goddesses have to leave me? Juanxi and Unhui are really together. Throw flowers to celebrate. Whose house is this? This is a love song that Lu Qin gave to Chin Feier. It's really nice. You're very touched, aren't you? Don't hold me back, I'm already on the balcony. Bless. In just half an hour, Meeting received more than 100,000 comments. They were all reposted by netizens, including Chin Feier's friends in the circle, further spreading its influence. Although the number of Lu Qin's fans was not as many as Chin Feier's, it was still more than 15 million. Many fans were fans of both of them, so if there was any movement on one side, the other side would know immediately. The reaction of Lu Chen's fans was even more intense. Haha, Big Lu Chen is mighty? I've already said it. Now you have nothing to say, right? It's obvious that they're in a relationship. Showing off your love will die faster. My Lu Chen will not be snatched away. Qin Fei'er and Lu Chen are really a good match. Let's bless them together. Don't be jealous. Burn the heterosexual to death. Gay is true love. What an unexpected surprise. I hope that the relationship between the two of you will last a long time. Bless them. It's the Lantern Festival. Is it really okay for the two of you to do this? Sigh, I didn't expect Lu Chen, who has thick eyebrows and big eyes, to betray the revolution. Most of the fans of Qin Fei'er and Lu Chen were pleasantly surprised by the PDA video that was suddenly released by her. Then they gave their blessings. Only a small number of people were disappointed, dissatisfied, or cursed. In fact, basically not many people were surprised. After all, there was so much foreshadowing. Coupled with the success of Autumn in My Heart, perhaps the real surprise was that the two of them did not end up together. There was also a small number of fans who thought that the two of them were shooting a commercial or a music video. However, this kind of unconvincing idea did not even cause a bubble to bubble. Compared to the explosive fans, the reaction of the people in the entertainment industry was undoubtedly much more cautious. After all, the two of them did not make an official statement. In order to avoid making a mistake, they temporarily took a wait-and-see attitude. Another explosion was the media. No one would have thought that Qin Fei'er would suddenly make such big news during the Lantern Festival. Therefore, the phones of the two's agents were soon exploding with calls. Chapter 319. Night fell slowly, and the capital was already brightly lit during the Lantern Festival. Room 1701 of Building 7 of Zicheng Garden was dark. A mobile phone that had been left between the cushions of the leisure sofa buzzed rhythmically, and the caller ID flashed red frequently. The phone rang for a long time, but no one picked it up and turned it on. Just when it calmed down, another mobile phone on the floor of the master bedroom rang again. However, no matter how hard it tried to call out to its owner, there was no response. The master bedroom was very dark. On the 2-meter-wide bed, the thick down quilt was swaying violently. Suddenly, a foot popped out from under the quilt, trembling slightly in the cold air. This foot was still dazzlingly white in the twilight. It was exquisite and round, and its skin was as translucent as jade. The arch of the foot was arched and the toes trembled. The round and bulging toes, coupled with the light pink toenails, looked very cute. The owner of the foot seemed to be going through a fierce battle. Sometimes it trembled, sometimes it curled up, sometimes it tensed up, and sometimes it relaxed. It stretched and bent its toes helplessly, trying to catch something like a panicked drowning person. No one knew when it started, but a low moan sounded in the quiet bedroom. It was as soft as a flute, but it also sounded like the wail of a swan on the verge of death. There was a trace of unbearable pain, but it was extremely weak. Soon it started again. It was like the sound of nature that could captivate one's soul, and there was an indescribable joy in it. In the midst of it, there was also the sound of heavy breathing, like a ferocious beast preying on its prey. The movement on the big bed lasted for a long time, accompanied by an uncontrollable scream. The exposed foot, which had already been covered with goosebumps, finally retracted under the quilt. Thus, there was only the sound of breathing in the room, and the thick and gentle spring scenery gradually spread out and blended into the night. After a long time, a figure crawled out of the warm quilt. He landed on the floor with bare feet, bent over to pick up the phone that was half hidden in his trouser pocket, and then quickly hid back on the bed, leaning against the headboard to look at the caller ID. What's wrong? Qin Fei'er poked her head out from under the blanket. The beautiful face of the heavenly queen of the music industry was flushed with shyness. There were still traces of tears in the corners of her eyes. Her hair was messy and sweaty, making her look even more seductive. Lu Chen reached out and pulled the beauty into his arms. He kissed her cheeks lovingly and said guiltily, "Sister called me a few times just now." It wasn't just a few, the screen showed more than 10 missed calls. Qin Fei'er shrunk his head and said embarrassedly, "Sister Zhang must have called me." Sister Zhang was Qin Fei'er's assistant for 10 years. She was also her manager. Sister Zhang usually handled the external affairs of Qin Fei'er's studio, including media contacts. She half-disclosed her relationship with Lu Chen in a moment of willfulness, which must have caused a sensation on the blog. It was inevitable that Lu Shi and Sister Zhang would call to ask about it. "You two started a fire, so you should at least give me an explanation, right?" However, Qin Fei didn't have the slightest regret in her heart. The result of a moment of passion was out of control. She did shameless things with Lu Qin in this new house to transform herself into a real woman. She had long been mature, but she didn't know how wonderful it was to be a woman until now. Lu Qin chuckled, dialed the number with one hand and groped restlessly with the other. He simply couldn't stop himself. Qin Fei felt Lu Qin's hot palm caressing her skin, bringing with it a familiar hot feeling. She couldn't help but let out a soft moan, and her eyes were so charming that tears were about to drip out. She was in love and shy at the same time. She bitterly opened her cherry mouth and bit Lu Qin's shoulder. Hiss! Lu Qin couldn't help but take a breath of cold air, so ruthless. However, at this time he had already dialed Lu Shi's number. Even if he wanted to take revenge, he had to endure it first. Sister. This phone call lasted for more than 10 minutes and Lu Qin was scolded half to death by Lu Shi. As a star artist, the problem of love was very important. Even if they wanted to make their relationship public, they had to arrange a plan first. At least, they had to let the company and the agent know so that they could deal with the media together. Qin Fei's blog post was very sudden. After posting it, she didn't care what kind of storm it would set off. She just immersed herself in the sweet sea of love. It was also willful. The main reason was that both of them opened their own studios and were in charge of their own affairs. Unlike many artists who were controlled by entertainment agencies above them, they had to report and approve their relationship. However, in this way their studios were naturally caught unprepared. Sister Zhang and Lu Shi could only deal with the storm-like interview requests of the media while calling the two of them. As a result, no one picked up after a long time. According to Lu Shi, it was too unreliable. If Lu Qin hadn't made this phone call, Sister Zhang and Lu Shi would have run to Zicheng Yuan to catch them in the act. Lu Shi knew that Lu Qin had come here to look at a house. Combined with the video on the blog, how could she not understand what was going on? In the face of his sister's anger, Lu Qin could only bow his head and admit his mistake, not daring to refute a word. I'm wrong, I'm guilty. However, he didn't regret it at all. After scolding him, Lu Shi was probably in a good mood. She asked, "Is Fei with you?" Lu Qin answered honestly, "Yes." Lu Shi hesitated for a moment and asked again, "Are you two like that?" "Like that? I see." Although Lu Qin was thick-skinned, he couldn't help but blush. The topic was too sensitive. He didn't know how to answer it, so he could only wait in silence. Lu Shi snorted and said, "I knew you. Forget it, give the phone to Fei. Sister Zhang wants to talk." Lu Qin handed the phone to Qin Fei embarrassedly. "Sister Zhang is looking for you." Qin Fei stuck out her tongue and took the phone. Sister Zhang? She was also complained about by Sister Zhang, but she finally got over it. After taking back the phone, Lu Qin directly pressed the power button and turned off the phone. He didn't want to be disturbed tonight. Just as he threw the phone aside, Lu Qin suddenly felt something strange on his chest. He looked down and saw Qin Fei moving her slender fingers and drawing circles on her chest. She stared at Lu Qin with her big watery eyes, which were full of endless charm. The heavenly queen giggled and asked softly, "Are you hungry? I'll cook something for you." Seductress. Lu Qin couldn't help but growl and immediately pressed Qin Fei under his body. "Have a taste of my staff first." At 9 o'clock on the night of the Lantern Festival, Lu Qin's studio and Qin Fei studio issued statements one after another, confirming that Lu Qin and Qin Fei were currently in the process of dating, and sincerely hoped to get everyone's blessing. At 10:30, Lu Qin FMX published an article called, "My Meeting with You is the Most Beautiful Accident." The content of the article was a stills of autumn in my heart. In the photo, Yin Juanxi, played by Lu Qin, and Yin Inxi, played by Qin Fei, snuggled up to each other and smiled brilliantly in the sun. At the same time, Qin Fei and Qin Fei replied with a smiley face emoji. At this point, the relationship between the two was completely exposed, and at the same time, they also received the warm blessings of countless fans. Although a small number of fans expressed disappointment, loss, and even sadness and dissatisfaction because of the previous foreshadowing, coupled with the huge influence of autumn in my heart, everyone actually expected and prepared in their hearts. Many people even eagerly hoped that they could be together, so they felt very surprised. The most worrisome situation of excessive fan emotions did not happen. Lu Qin and Qin Fei first met on the talent show, Singing China, on Beijing television. At that time, one was a contestant and the other was a mentor. However, they have known and fallen in love all the way to the present, which has undoubtedly become a popular story in the pop music world. No one knows how long their relationship will last, but friends in the circle and other celebrity artists they know or don't know have also sent their best wishes, making this topic quickly occupy the top of the blog hot search list. Without any suspense, by the next day, Lu Qin and Chen Fei's relationship became the entertainment headlines. QQ. Make an appointment on the Lantern Festival, Lu Qin and Chen Fei officially open their relationship. Title Web. It's no longer just a scandal, the truth of Chen Fei's love comes to light. EasyNet. Seeing sibling love again, Lu Qin and Chen Fei no longer hide and calmly face millions of fans. Entertainment Weekly. Fake drama becomes real, Lu Qin and Chen Fei reveal the secret of love. News headline. The perfect combination of a heavenly queen and a musical genius. Xinxing Daily. Encounter is a beautiful love. Pop music. Many media outlets dug out the previous information of Lu Qin and Chen Fei, pieced together the love route of the two, and matched it with all kinds of exaggerated words, which also attracted enough attention. More media outlets sent reporters to squat at the door of Lu Qin's studio and Chen Fei's studio, hoping to be able to stop the two parties and interview first-hand information. But these media reporters were disappointed. Both studios refused their interviews, and Lu Qin and Chen Fei were nowhere to be seen, as if they had evaporated from the world. Because whether it is Lu Qin or Chen Fei, they do not need to use their own relationship to hype up, turning the beautiful relationship between them into a tool for profit, and they do not want to become the hot topic of the media. There are countless news happening in the entertainment industry every day. As long as the two do not cooperate, this topic will naturally subside and no longer become the focus of people's attention. And Lu Qin and Chen Fei can quietly enjoy the time of their love. They left their never-ending work, through the daily affairs to their respective agents, and quietly ran to Bali for a sweet vacation. It was not until March 2nd that Lu Qin and Chen Fei returned to Beijing. 2 days later, on March 4th, is the opening day of the most famous 72H Grass Music Festival in China. At that time, Lu Qin will lead the Nirvana band to perform. Chapter 320. With the passage of time, the hot news in the entertainment industry is like a summer storm, coming and going quickly. Because the two studios did not cooperate, and the two parties did not hype up the disappearance of Player, so except for the fans who were still noisy on the internet, the media quickly shifted their attention and were too lazy to continue to be self-sentimental. There was too much gossip in the circle. Here the two female stars were fighting, and there was a rumor that a male star was coming out of the closet. True and false hype and acting, there was as much material as he wanted. When Lu Qin and Chen Fei broke up one day or one of them cheated, then it would be worth reporting. And this was exactly what Lu Qin and Chen Fei expected. They waited until the storm subsided before quietly returning to China. During this period they did not show their love on the blog. In addition to cooling down the topic, it was also to avoid killing the single dogs. Beautiful time always passes quickly. After returning to Beijing, the two had to separate again and busy themselves with their respective careers. Although she loves Lu Qin and her own wealth has accumulated to the point where it can't be spent in a lifetime, Chen Fei has no idea of quitting the entertainment industry for the time being. She likes singing, likes acting, likes standing in the spotlight, likes her career, and doesn't want to be reduced to a housewife early. Perhaps one day when she is tired, she will marry Lu Qin without regrets and retire from the circle forever. She will wash away the prosperity and make soup with her bare hands. She will give birth to several children and accompany them to grow old happily. Lu Qin is very supportive of Chen Fei's idea. His career has just started, and it is the time for him to show his ambition. He does not want to mix feelings and career together. Only when two people understand and support each other can their relationship last and blossom and bear fruit. The separation and reunion in the entertainment industry is too common. Neither Lu Qin nor Chen Fei wants to be one of them. On the day he returned to Beijing, Chen Fei began recording the new album. Lu Qin, on the other hand, took the time to practice his new work with the Nirvana band, preparing to participate in the 72H Grass Music Festival. For this famous music carnival, he had written 2 new songs early. The 72H Grass Music Festival was founded in the early 1990s by a number of record companies and 7 famous musicians in the circle. At that time, the first music festival was held in Chaoyang Park in Beijing. The first music festival invited 32 singers and 11 bands to participate. More than 10,000 people came to attend the festival, which caused a great sensation at that time and became a grand event in pop music. Among the 32 singers and 11 bands, there were well-known rock and roll representatives such as the Black Ravens and the Sky, as well as many nobodies. However, some of the singers rose to prominence in the music festival and attracted widespread attention in the music industry. This led to more and more people signing up to participate, and voluntary participation became invitation participation. Later on, the Mystic Music Festival moved to Wild Mountain Park near the New Era Arts Center and changed its name to 72H Grass Music Festival. It had been held 19 times so far. Although it has been interrupted several times in the middle, 72H Grass Music Festival has always maintained a strong influence in pop music, especially by those who really like pop music lovers. 72H mainly invites singers and bands with characteristics. Whether the other party is a big name in the circle or a street performer, as long as they have a unique singing style or work, they have the opportunity to stand on its stage and show their strength to tens of thousands of audiences, so that they can get the favor of entertainment agencies. Qin Kaixin, Su Liwen, Ganaza, Chao Luan, Red Express, Wednesday etc., all came out of 72H Grass Music Festival and went to the whole country. This year's 20th 72H Grass Music Festival invited the most singers and bands in the past, and received a lot of sponsorship, so it was extraordinarily grand. Just after the Lantern Festival, many singers, bands and music fans came from all over the country to Beijing, and then set up tents at the music festival site in Yeshan Park. The singers and bands that came early didn't all get an invitation letter. They came here with the idea of a pilgrimage, in order to participate in this important exchange of non-mainstream music. 72H Grass Music Festival had another name in the circle. It was called Non-Mainstream Music Festival. This was because in this grand event, the most popular were not the mainstream love songs, fast songs or sloppy songs, but rock, heavy metal, R&B, rap, postmodern, folk and other non-mainstream genres. Therefore, 72H Grass Music Festival was very famous, but it was very rare to see big stars. Old singers, bottom-level singers and underground singers were the most common. Singing fast songs and sloppy songs here would be looked down upon and then booed off the stage. Freedom, spontaneity, pioneer, creation, was the theme of 72H. It was like a huge magnet, attracting those talented but unsuccessful musicians to come one after another. As for the fans who arrived early, they were truly passionate. Not everyone had the money and time to spare. Many of them had specially taken a leave of absence and took the high-speed train for 5 or 6 hours or even longer to come to the capital, just to be able to get the best seats at the venue. By March 3rd, in Yeshan Park, south of the New Era Art Park, countless red and green tents had been erected, extending from the grass in front of the stage to the hillside hundreds of meters away. Looking down from above, the scene was spectacular. The singing stage was basically built, and the background and lighting were arranged. Only the sound equipment had not yet entered the venue. On the morning of the 4th, which was the opening day, 6 pairs of outdoor speakers taller than a person were placed in different positions. The big LED screen in the background of the stage began to play the test film, and the atmosphere suddenly became lively. More and more music fans appeared at the scene, and the entrances and exits of the park began to restrict the flow of people. There was also a cordon in the distance. The loudspeaker had been playing reminders and media reporters appeared in the crowd. Lu Qin and the Nirvana band arrived at Yeshan Park near noon. Originally, Lu Qin didn't have to come so early because his performance time was arranged at about 8 o'clock in the evening, and it was not too late to come when it was dark. However, he had long admired the name of 72H Grass Music Festival. He had never had the opportunity to come to the capital to see the scene. This time he had the opportunity to participate in person, so he came in advance to recharge his faith. As for Wang Jing and other members of the Nirvana band, they had all seen the scene, but it was also the first time they went on stage and they were also very excited and even excited. When Lu Qin just appeared in front of the stage with his people, he was immediately stared at. Chapter 321. Teacher Lu Qin. When Lu Qin walked toward the backstage, a vigorous figure flew over and blocked his way. Fortunately, Lu Qin's reaction was fast enough and stopped in an instant. Otherwise he would have directly collided with the other party. You are. The person who blocked his way was a young girl in her early 20s. She was wearing a red down jacket with the logo of the 72H Grass Music Festival. Her appearance was ordinary, but she had a ponytail and looked very youthful and lively. Even the few freckles on her face revealed a bit of cuteness. There was an identity nameplate with an anti-counterfeiting logo hanging on her chest, and there was a cameraman following behind her. The ponytail girl was obviously very excited. Big eyes were full of excitement. She raised the microphone in her hand and pointed it at Lu Qin. She asked a series of questions. Hello, Teacher Lu Qin. I'm a reporter from the entertainment channel of Tide Network. What works have you prepared for this music festival? Do you have any plans to release a new album this year? Also, are you going to make a sequel to Blue Love? Can you talk about your relationship with Chen Fei? Stop, stop, stop. Lu Chen was a little dizzy from the bombardment of her series of questions. He quickly made a stop gesture. Lu Chen smiled bitterly and said, "Can you ask them one by one?" Tide Network was one of the large portal websites in China. It was also a local internet giant company in Beijing. It was currently listed on Nasdaq in the United States and had considerable influence. Therefore, Lu Chen had to give some face, even if the other party seemed to be a completely reckless newcomer. It was a very profound knowledge for star artists to deal with the media, and he was still learning. The ponytail girl's face turned red. She took a deep breath and said embarrassedly, "I like your songs very much in the TV series you made. I'm also your loyal fan." She also knew that she was a little reckless just now, so she quickly explained a few words so as not to annoy Lu Chen. Stars hated entertainment reporters, but they were often willing to give some face to an entertainment reporter who was a part-time loyal fan. This little trick was taught by her predecessor, but she was really a fan of Lu Chen. Some time ago, when Lu Chen and Chen Fei announced their relationship, and when the media hyped it up, the two played the game of disappearing from the world and avoided the interview to quickly cool down the topic. But this didn't mean that this topic didn't sell. For the ponytail girl who was still a newcomer, being able to catch Lu Chen at the 72H Grass Music Festival today was like a big pie falling from the sky. She felt dizzy, so she was too excited and didn't pay attention to her words. If Lu Chen was scared away, the news would come to her. Her explanation was really effective. Lu Chen smiled and said, "For the sake of fans, what do you want to ask?" Lu Chen said, "Lu Chen, Lu Chen, Lu Chen." Lu Chen nodded. Lu Chen nodded and said, "Okay, I'll be there in a minute." The 72H Grass Music Festival didn't have such a low level of accompaniment. It was all live accompaniment. The singers who participated in the performance could bring their own band or let the organizers arrange it. In addition, items such as drums, electronic organs, synthesizers, and so on were not easy to move. Unless they had special needs or obsessive-compulsive patients, most of the participating bands used the equipment provided by the organizers. Otherwise, if each band brought their own full set of equipment, it would be troublesome to move it back and forth, and it would be a waste of time to change it. As for guitars, basses, and other instruments that were easy to carry, most of them were self-prepared. The organizers provided multiple sets of the same equipment for the band members who arrived in advance to practice and familiarize themselves with it, so as not to affect their normal level of performance. The Nirvana band was no exception. Even if their territory was in Beijing, they were not arrogant enough to use their own instruments. They only brought a few guitars and basses, so they definitely needed to find a feel before going on stage. As soon as Wang Jing and the others left, the ponytailed reporter from the Trend Network Entertainment Channel couldn't wait to ask, "Teacher Lu Chen, is this your first time participating in the 72H Music Festival?" Lu Chen replied, "Yes, in fact I wanted to come to Beijing a long time ago. I didn't expect to be able to participate in person today. It's a very fresh and exciting experience for me." "Then have you prepared any new works for this music festival?" There were many new singers and bands participating in the 72H Grass Music Festival, including many excellent singers and songwriters. Unless it was a tribute, they disdained to cover other people's works. At the music festival, original works were also the most popular and sought after, including many representatives sent by entertainment agencies. They were also happy to see more new and good works. At present, the domestic pop music scene really needed new original works, because many pop music lovers, including those ordinary listeners, had already begun to get tired of the same fast songs. Originality was king. This was the most important reason why the 72H Grass Music Festival could have such a great influence, even though it had a strong non-mainstream nature. Lu Chen was precisely relying on originality to start, especially the campus folk song trend that he set off. It had a great impact both inside and outside the circle, and the endless original works had brought him a high reputation. If Lu Chen cooked cold rice on 72H, it would definitely disappoint a lot of people. Of course, Lu Chen wouldn't disappoint everyone. "Yes, I have prepared 2 new songs, both of which will be my first public performance." The ponytailed reporter smiled and said, "That's great. I'm looking forward to your new works. May I ask if you have any plans to release a new album this year?" Lu Chen said without hesitation, "I will definitely release my second album this year." This was a fact without a doubt. Once the new studio at the art park was renovated and the recording studio could be put into use, he would start to produce his second album. Whether he went to shoot TV, movies, or anything else, music would always be the foundation that he stuck to. Lu Chen. Mr. Lu Chen. Teacher Lu Chen. Just as Lu Chen answered the ponytailed reporter's second question, 6 or 7 reporters suddenly ran over. They brought their respective cameramen and surrounded Lu Chen. Microphones and recording pens were extended to his mouth. It wasn't only the ponytailed reporter from Tide Network who came to interview the 72H Grass Music Festival. Many entertainment-related media had also sent out reporters to dig for news clues at the scene. The ponytailed reporter's interview with Lu Chen attracted their attention, so they swarmed over like bees smelling honey. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 or 20 people gathered, surrounding Lu Chen and making it difficult for him to move. Li Feiyu saw that the situation wasn't good, so he quickly stood in front of Lu Chen to protect him. The security guards at the scene also rushed over to help maintain order. But this didn't affect the enthusiasm of the reporters. They shouted and asked Lu Chen all kinds of questions. As a result, she took the lead in the beginning, but because of her small and weak body, the ponytailed girl was squeezed out of the crowd. She was so angry that she stamped her feet again and again, but there was nothing she could do. Grab news, news really needed to be grabbed. Especially when interviewing hot people, it was very important to occupy a position. Compared with the veteran entertainment reporters of QQ Network and Entertainment Weekly, the ponytailed girl was really too inexperienced. She stomped her feet and was depressed, but in fact, some people were even more unhappy than her. Hee, it's awesome to have a heavenly queen. On the east side of the stage of the music festival, on the grass not far from the backstage area, a large independent area was separated with warning tape. There were hundreds of tents inside, and in the open space between the tents, many singers with guitars sat in 2s and 3s. This position was specially allocated to singers and bands who came from outside to participate in the performance. On the one hand, it was to save their expenses, on the other hand, it was also an occasion for them to communicate. Therefore, it was possible to see several or a group of singers gathered together to chat, drink and talk about music. Because the location was very close, the scene of Lu Chen being interviewed by a large number of media reporters inevitably fell into the eyes of many foreign singers. Some people glanced at it and no longer paid attention. They were immersed in their own music world. Some showed curiosity or envy when they saw such a scene, and some showed disdain or even contempt. A group of about 20 singers looked in the direction of Lu Chen. A thin, dark-skinned, long-haired young man sneered, "This world still has to look at faces." His words were immediately agreed by others. Yes, being handsome is an advantage. Who told us not to have a good reincarnation? We can only rely on ourselves to work hard. Humph, in terms of strength, can he compare with our brother Gangzi? Those soft folk songs are nothing. Real singers should sing rock and roll. It's a pity that nowadays fans go to the face. Those entertainment companies are rushing to sign some little fresh meat. Ah, we are old wax sticks. In tonight's performance, Brother Gangzi will show his skills and shock them. When Brother Gangzi was popular, the Brother Gangzi they mentioned was Shi Gang, the lead singer of the Wednesday Band. The Wednesday Band was founded at the beginning of the new century with 5 members. It was originally a pure rock band. The band became famous at the 72H Grass Music Festival. At that time, the Song of the Earth, written by Shi Gang and sung at the music festival, was a sensation and was regarded as a counterattack work of national rock. As a result, the Wednesday Band was signed by Gem Records and released 2 albums that sold very well. The style also changed from pure rock and roll to a combination of pure and light, incorporating more musical elements. However, the band did not have a long time to shine. Their follow-up works lacked highlights, and they also had a dispute with Gem Records. After the termination of the contract, Shi Gang took people to the south to develop. But every 72H Grass Music Festival, as long as the Wednesday Band was invited, they would definitely participate. And this year, Shi Gang and Wednesday brought their carefully prepared works to the festival. Chapter 322. Shi Gang was in his 30s, but he looked older, like an uncle in his 40s. His beard was unkempt, and he had an indescribable decadent aura. However, compared to many of his dispirited peers who were equally unkempt, he looked quite different. His clothes and trousers were all starched and clean, and there were absolutely no thick stains on his clothes. His thick and strong fingernails were neatly trimmed, and his eyes were bright and full of spirit. No one would mistake him for a homeless man on the street. Shi Gang frowned slightly at his companion's incitement, then he immediately smiled and said, "Don't say that. Lu Chen is a very capable singer. In terms of talent, he is much better than me." No one thought that Brother Gongzi, who had always been quite arrogant in the circle, would actually praise Lu Qin so much. Those people who ridiculed Lu Qin just now couldn't help but shut their mouths and showed an awkward expression. Shi Gang acted as if he didn't see it and continued, "Yesterday I chatted with Big Qin from the Bionics for a long time. Big Brother Qin told me a lot about Lu Qin. It is lucky to have someone like him appear in the pop music world." Shi Gang had been in the music industry for more than 10 years. He had experienced prosperity and also experienced neglect. He had mingled in the mainstream and non-mainstream circles. He had mixed in the low-level and high-level circles. Naturally, he had his own views on life. He was very clear that in the domestic pop music world, the non-mainstream circle was as complicated as the mainstream circle. It was full of all kinds of people. Those depressed singers often had prejudice and even hatred towards the famous people in the mainstream circle. And it was often these people who were actually very envious of the glory of the mainstream circle. On the other hand, the mainstream circle's rejection and contempt towards the non-mainstream circle had always existed. The original intention of the 72H Grass Music Festival was to break the barrier between the two circles, to let more outstanding talents at the bottom stand out, and to let the mainstream circle pay attention to their existence. But it was not easy. Although there were many singers and bands that emerged through 72H and were signed by entertainment agents, the situation of the non-mainstream circle had not changed. The mutual estrangement and discrimination had never really been eliminated. To be honest, Shi Gang, who was now wandering between the mainstream and non-mainstream circles, also looked down on the so-called young idols in the mainstream circle who had mediocre singing skills and completely relied on their good looks to make a living. But Lu Qin was definitely not that type. When the wandering band's Great Qin was mentioned, everyone fell silent. Regardless of whether they admitted it or not, the Bionics were now one of the most popular bands in the music industry. Qin Hanyang's background in Qin had given him a very high reputation in the non-mainstream music industry. His single In the Spring had moved countless lower-class singers, and they all viewed Qin Hanyang as a big brother. Lu Qin happened to be the songwriter of In the Spring. His works also include Chasing Dreams with a Childlike Heart, Once You, Fly Higher, and other outstanding light rock songs. It was nothing more than his youth, handsomeness, TV series and relationship with Chen Fei that made people intentionally or unintentionally ignore his talent and strength in original music. Wasn't it very ignorant and laughable to look down on such a person? Many people's faces showed a bit of shame. Shi Gang clapped his hands and said, "Actually, on the other hand, to be able to perform with a singer like Lu Qin on the same stage is also our luck. I suggest that we all bring out our best and not let others look down on us." This time, everyone's reaction was enthusiastic, and their morale rose again. Yes, Brother Gangzi is right. We can't let others look down on us. Shi Gang smiled but didn't say anything. In his heart he was thinking about the performance at night. He had never been a singer who was willing to be lonely. The ups and downs of life made him know how to cherish opportunities. Although Lu Qin was strong, it wasn't enough to make him lose the courage and confidence to sing. Similar to Shi Gang, those capable singers were also rubbing their palms together, eager to compete with each other. Although their fame and popularity couldn't be compared to a popular singer like Lu Qin, the 72H Grass Music Festival was different from ordinary performances. The audience who came here had a high degree of recognition for the non-mainstream circle, and they knew how to appreciate rock and roll and other niche types of music. In the history of 72H, there was no lack of famous singers who were booed to the point of losing face. The live band accompaniment, the unplugged features, and the authentic singing were a test of individual strength. Therefore here, anyone could sing more popular than Lu Qin or other big-name singers. At this moment, Lu Qin didn't know that there were so many singers waiting to compete with him. He used more than half an hour to deal with the reporters and arrived backstage. Although it was called backstage, it was actually a simple tent that was temporarily set up. It was as long as a vegetable shed. There were already many singers and bands in the tent. Lu Qin saw several familiar faces. Brother Liao Jia. Among the singers invited to the 20th 72H Grass Music Festival, the one with the highest status was definitely not Lu Qin. It was Liao Jia. This disciple of Black Raven's lead singer and soul figure, Gao Yi, was once regarded as the last hope of national rock. Although he couldn't save national rock, he still had a high influence in the music industry. For the 72H Grass Music Festival, Liao Jia also had a very special identity. He was one of the founders. Of course, Liao Jia was only a special guest of the music festival, not a member of the organizing committee. Lu Qin and Liao Jia knew each other because of Chen Fei. The latter once pursued Chen Fei, but Chen Fei didn't have any feelings for him. In the end, Lu Chen, this young boy, won her heart. For this reason, Liao Jia deliberately looked for Lu Chen to compete in drinking, and the two became friends because of each other. Liao Jia's temper was a little impatient, but he had a good character. His popularity and reputation in the circle were even better. Therefore, even if Lu Chen's popularity was higher now, he still had to politely greet this person. "You're here too." Seeing Lu Chen, a smile appeared on Liao Jia's dark and thin face. He stood up from his seat, stepped forward, and patted Lu Chen's shoulder hard. He asked in a very polite manner, "What time does your performance start?" Lu Chen replied, "Around 8:30. Liao Jia smiled and said, "I'm at 7:30. I've wanted to compete with you for a long time. Now the opportunity has come." Lu Chen blushed with shame. "Brother Liao Jia, can we not joke?" "Who's joking with you?" Liao Jia glared and said, "If you lose to me, I will despise you." Chapter 323. The biggest feature of the 72H Grass Music Festival, which was also the most talked about, was that on its stage, celebrity status and fame were not important at all. The audience judged the singers based on their live performance. In other words, whether it was Liao Jia or Lu Chen, there was not much difference between them and other singers who were just performing on the street. Everyone was standing on the same starting line and competing on the same stage. Of course, famous singers would definitely get a lot more attention, but that was all. Liao Jia's challenge to Lu Chen originated from this. He was very serious. If a singer wanted to break through, 72H was undoubtedly a very suitable stage. He challenged Lu Chen, and other singers were also challenging him and Lu Chen. Liao Jia was a very proud person. He appreciated Lu Chen, but he would never be willing to be a foil to Lu Chen here. Bringing out all his strength was the recognition of the challengers. It was also the greatest respect for the audience. 72H was actually equivalent to a large-scale singing competition. The judges were tens of thousands of enthusiastic audiences who came to Wild Mountain Park. Many of them came from all over the country and traveled thousands of miles just for the sake of their feelings. Near noon, as the opening ceremony of the music festival was about to be held, more and more people gathered in the park. Looking from a high place, it was all black and there were also erected tents. Freedom, openness, and tolerance were the theme of the 72H Grass Music Festival. To participate in the 72H Grass Music Festival, there was no need to buy tickets, and there were no seats. Everyone could watch and leave, and it was not a problem to set up camp. However, due to the large number of audiences, near noon, the management of Wild Mountain Park began to restrict the audience's entry to prevent the number of people entering the park from exceeding the park's capacity. In addition, the large advertising LED screens on the east and west sides of the park would also synchronize the live broadcast of the main stage to play the role of diverting the audience and reducing the pressure on the venue. In addition, hundreds of security personnel and a large number of volunteers worked together to maintain the safety and order of the music festival. On the first Friday in March 2016, the weather was exceptionally sunny. The warm sun shone on Wild Mountain Park in early spring. The crowd was bustling and the air was filled with the smell of music. At 12 o'clock, 12 outdoor speakers placed in different parts of the park played passionate music at the same time. The blood-boiling singing fiercely impacted the eardrums of all the audience present. The crowd was shocked into silence for a moment before they let out earth-shattering cheers. The 20th 72H Grass Music Festival, a carnival for free pop music fans, was about to begin. The opening music was the classic rock composition of the Black Ravens, Tomorrow Reborn, that everyone was familiar with. This song, Tomorrow Reborn, is not only the famous work of the Black Ravens, but also the pinnacle of national rock. Almost all rock singers have covered and practiced it. As long as they heard this familiar melody, people would always think of the glorious days of the National Shake. However, his eyes were brimming with tears. Among the audience at the music festival, there were many old fans in their 40s and 50s. The rock and roll years that they had personally experienced had long been engraved in their memories. Therefore, when Tomorrow Reborn was played, they roared and sang along like hot-blooded youths. The atmosphere of the music festival was pushed to a climax at the beginning. Unlike those ordinary large-scale outdoor activities, the opening ceremony of the 72H Grass Music Festival was so simple that it couldn't be simpler. There were no flags fluttering, gongs and drums to cheer, no beautiful models to match the etiquette, no long speeches from big-bellied leaders to sponsors, and not even a host. On the big stage, the band for the first performance was already in place, and then Liao Jia appeared as the singer representative. This big brother of the pop music industry was wearing a black long-sleeved cotton shirt with the head of Gao Yi, the lead singer of the Black Ravens and Tattered Jeans. His unruly long hair was braided, and his dark face looked solemn. He stood in front of the microphone and said to the thousands of audience below the stage, "Hello, everyone. I'm Liao Jia. I'm very happy to stand here with everyone again and enjoy the happiness that music brings to us. It's been 20 years. How are you all?" Liao Jia roared out the last sentence with all his strength, with a kind of hysterical vicissitudes and nostalgia. Good. Countless audiences responded loudly and countless hands were raised high. Their shouts converged into a sea of sound waves, spreading in all directions and passing to every corner of Wild Mountain Park. After Liao Jia waited for the audience's emotions to erupt, he nodded and continued, "I won't say much else. You're here to listen to the song and I'm here to sing. That's it." He grabbed the microphone and threw it to the lead singer of the band behind him. "Come on." The next moment, applause, screams, and whistles sounded one after another, and it didn't subside for a long time. In such a noisy atmosphere, the first band to participate in the 72H Grass Music Festival, which was also a local band in Beijing, the Engine Band, began to sing. Lasting for 72 hours, a gluttonous feast belonging to pop music fans officially began. At the same time, Lu Qin sat in the corner of the backstage area. He was watching the live video broadcast on the big screen in front of him while his mind wandered. The 72H Grass Music Festival did not have a live TV broadcast, but the copyright of the live online broadcast was bought by NetEase Music. The number of online audiences was quite astonishing. Anyone who cared about domestic original pop music would not miss this extraordinary performance. After experiencing the initial excitement, Lu Qin was now very calm. He recalled his musical journey all the way and always felt like he was still in a dream. Maybe it was because everything came too fast. "Lu Qin, what are you thinking about?" Just as Lu Qin was lost in thought, Wang Jing came over and sat down beside him and asked curiously. Lu Qin came to his senses, smiled at her and said, "Nothing, just thinking about our performance." Wang Jing said, "It's still early for us to go on stage. You're not nervous now, are you?" Lu Qin couldn't help laughing and shook his head. Wang Jing was embarrassed. "I'm a little nervous. I never thought I would have the opportunity to go on the 72H stage before." Lu Qin smiled and said, "Believe me, the stage that belongs to you will only be bigger in the future." Lu Qin didn't just say that. He built the Nirvana Band as his own exclusive band. This band will accompany him to a more brilliant stage. 72H is just the beginning. Wang Jing bit her lip and said, "Thank you, Lu Qin." She has too many reasons to thank Lu Qin. Thank Lu Qin for helping her at her most difficult time. Thank Lu Qin for allowing the Nirvana Band to survive and be reborn. Thank Lu Qin for investing a huge sum of money to let Wang Hui build the high-end recording studio he dreamed of. Thank Lu Qin. She hasn't properly and sincerely thanked Lu Qin. Lu Qin's contracts for the new Nirvana Band, including her and Wang Hui, are very loose. There are no harsh restrictive clauses, no squeezing conditions, but the treatment given is higher than the average level of the industry. Lu Qin smiled and said, "You're welcome. We're friends." "Friends?" Wang Jing nodded silently. After a while she stood up and said, "I'm going to practice." Lu Qin, "Okay." As soon as Wang Jing left, another man sat down beside him and handed him a can of beer. "This chick is interested in you. You can't let Fei her down. Otherwise don't blame me for being rough with you." Lu Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Brother Liao Jia, you think too much." "It's better that I think too much." Liao Jia casually pulled open the ring and gulped down a few mouthfuls. Then he said, "I told Old Tan that pretty boys are unreliable. Old Tan said that you're not, but I'll keep my eyes on you." Lu Qin shook his head, opened his beer and clinked it with Liao Jia. "You'd better give up. I won't give you a chance to be rough, and even if you are rough you're not my opponent." "I admire your confidence." Liao Jia clenched his left hand and his knuckles creaked. "Tonight I can beat you up and let you know what a real rock singer is like." Lu Qin was curious. "Brother Liao Jia, your new work tonight is pure rock. Are you scared?" Liao Jia gave him a contemptuous look. "Tell me first, what song are you going to sing?" Lu Qin replied without hesitation, "Rock." "Rock?" Liao Jia's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're going to sing rock?" Lu Qin was famous for folk songs, especially the campus folk songs he created, which made him widely popular among young people, and he was known as a folk music genius. Lu Qin also wrote many rock songs, but most of them were sung by others such as the Bionics, North Needle, etc., and he only sang, "Chasing Dreams with a Childlike Heart." Liao Jia couldn't help but feel surprised that he was going to sing rock at the 72H Grass Music Festival instead of the folk songs he was best at. 72H wasn't a talent show or a recording studio. Singing on stage here was unplugged and untuned. Most of the audience were veteran rock music fans, and they would be able to hear the slightest loss of standard. Also, rock was not easy to sing. Lu Chen's voice was used to singing lyrical and nostalgic folk songs. Could he sing rock live even if it was light rock? Liao Jia expressed his doubt. "You're not deliberately trying to lose to me, right?" Lu Chen returned a contemptuous look. "You're not afraid, are you?" Liao Jia suddenly felt hot blood rush to his head. "Afraid of you, just don't cry when you lose." Lu Chen laughed. "Okay, let's make a bet. Whoever loses will go back and treat us." Liao Jia slapped the stool fiercely. "Let's do it." Chapter 324. There were many singers in the backstage area, and most of them were local people in the Beijing circle. Unlike the band singers from other places, local singers usually did not camp in Yeshan Park. They naturally formed a different circle from the foreign singers who stayed in the camp area outside. Of course, these two circles were not the kind that were clearly separated and minded their own business. There were people who knew each other and communicated with each other. Some were friends and some were friends of friends. There was no antagonism. But there were still differences. For example, in the inner circle in terms of fame and position, Liao Jia and Lu Chen are undoubtedly ranked in the top two. Beijing's local singers undoubtedly have more respect and attention to the two, unlike foreign singers, who hope to overturn them on the stage. Who was Liao Jia? He was a big brother in the domestic pop music industry, famous for his forthrightness. As a newly rising singer and songwriter, Lu Chen's experience was almost legendary in the Beijing singer circle. The story of his song "In the Spring," making the Bionics popular, was still talked about. So, the conversation between the two attracted the attention of many people present, especially when Liao Jia was about to bet with Lu Chen. Everyone stopped watching the TV screen. There seemed to be a more exciting show here. Lu Chen noticed the eyes from around him and said with a smile, "It's not enough to invite me alone. If you want to invite me, you have to invite everyone together. What do you say?" The singers in the Beijing circle were still very respectful. Regardless of whether they heard it clearly or not, they all applauded loudly. Anyway, they wouldn't lose out by applauding. Liao Jia was so angry that he scolded, "Are you sure you can beat me? Dream on. There's no problem with inviting everyone. Whoever loses will have to open a table at D Hao. There will be as many tables as there are people. Everyone will have a share." This time everyone understood. Suddenly everyone smiled and praised loudly, "Brother Liao is mighty." D Hao was a famous 5-star hotel in Beijing. Even a buffet there cost 388 renminbi per person. If they were to open a table, the cost would be even higher. There were at least 100 people in the backstage area, so they had to open at least 10 tables. Liao Jia looked at Lu Chen triumphantly. "You want to fight with me? I'm the one who can beat you." Lu Chen smiled. "Then it's a deal." He extended his hand to Liao Jia and high-fived him to seal the deal. Two palms clapped heavily together. It was considered an interesting event in this year's 72H Grass Music Festival. In fact, whether it was Liao Jia or Lu Chen, it was not a big deal for them to open 8 or 10 tables in the Imperial Hotel. They were just looking for some fun and excitement. So the topic quickly turned to the music festival itself. Liao Jia gulped down 2 cans of beer and, a little tipsy, began to comment on the singers and bands on stage. The content included the other party's style, works, singing skills, and so on. Among the people present, only he was qualified to do such a thing. Even Lu Chen wasn't qualified enough. Liao Jia was very outspoken. If he thought it was good, then it was not crude. If he thought it was not good, then it was not good. He did not use repetitive words or clichés that would not offend people, but his comments were quite sharp and on point. Lu Chen listened more than he spoke, and he also discussed a few words with Liao Jia. The surrounding singers were all attracted over. One of the most important purposes of the 72H Grass Music Festival was to communicate. To be able to listen to the live comments of this big shot in the music industry was definitely a rare experience for them. It was also an excellent opportunity to increase their experience and knowledge. The stones from other mountains could be used to attack jade. By absorbing other people's strengths and comparing them to other people's weaknesses, one could completely improve oneself. As time passed, Liao Jia's talkative nature did not decrease. Some of the singers around him and Lu Chen went on stage and left, while others came in to fill in, forming a unique circle in the backstage area. The types of singers invited to the 72H Grass Music Festival were very complicated. Of course, there was no lack of existences to hold the stage. For example, today's big shots included Liao Jia and Lu Qin, as well as a few famous local singers. However, whether it was Liao Jia or Lu Qin or a few others, their order of appearance was quite late. According to the time, Liao Jia would go on stage to sing at around 7:30 in the evening. Lu Qin was an hour away from him. However, this time was definitely not fixed. 72H was different from a normal concert. First of all, it was very long. Secondly, the time when the singer would go on stage was very variable. This was mainly reflected in the return stage. On this stage, even if a singer or a band was completely unknown and nobody knew their name, as long as they produced sufficiently wonderful and outstanding works, or displayed superhuman singing talent, they would be recognized and loved by the live audience, and they would even request to return to the stage. The audience's evaluation was the only standard to measure a singer's performance. The longer and more enthusiastic the audience's applause, the louder and more impassioned the cheers, and the more sincere and intense the request to return stage, then the more honor this singer would win. Although 72H did not give out awards and there were no trophies or bonuses, this was definitely a place where one could become famous overnight. Therefore, the singers and bands that could go on stage would basically all display their full strength. Among the more than 10 singers and 4 bands that had already appeared, there was a singer and a band that stood out and received high praise from Liao Jia. Especially the female singer, Mu Mu. Her self-played and sung Du made Liao Jia slap the table and praise it. At the same time, she also received crazy cheers from the audience. The audience used their applause to ask her to return stage and sing a second song. Liao Jia said to Lu Qin, "You should sign her." Lu Qin was speechless. He also thought that this female singer named Mu Mu was very strong, but currently his studio did not have any requests to sign her. If he took too big a step, it was easy to pull his balls. Moreover, even if he did not talk about the music festival, there were too many capable singers in Beijing that no one wanted to sign. If Lu Qin's studio released the news, there would definitely be a lot of talents coming over to be taken in. Therefore, even if he missed out on this Mu Mu, there was nothing to regret. However, regarding Lu Qin ignoring his opinion, Liao Jia expressed great disdain. "You must be afraid that your husband will be jealous, so you don't dare to sign this female singer." He humphed and said, "Your husband is pretty good." Lu Qin was very speechless about this. With great difficulty, it was finally 7 p.m., and it was finally Liao Jia's turn to go on stage. The reason why the time was brought forward and not delayed was because there were a few singers who gave up at the last minute or applied to adjust the time on stage. This kind of situation was very common in music festivals. As soon as Liao Jia went on stage, he immediately received a warm welcome from the audience. He did not disappoint, and brought out his own original song for the first song, Memorial Day. A pure-blooded national rock work. Chapter 325. Liao Jia was a singer with a lot of character. At first glance he did not look like a famous singer at all. Instead, he looked like the kind of gangster that was commonly seen in Hong Kong films. When he had nothing to do, he would sit in an old tea house and drink tea and snacks, while secretly commanding a group of underlings to collect protection fees from everywhere. In the circle, Liao Jia was also recognized as a forthright and loyal person. His aura was very unique, and when people faced him, they would involuntarily feel a trace of awe. But when he appeared on the stage with a guitar, he was a completely different Liao Jia. This Liao Jia was a singer, a rock singer, a veteran who could give up everything for his ideals. When he strummed the steel strings and opened his mouth to roar the first line of the lyrics, the thousands of audience around the stage all boiled up, as if a ladle of cold water had been poured on boiling oil, exploding with a sizzling sound. In memory of the frivolity of youth, in memory of the dead love, in memory of the everlasting friendship, Liao Jia used this original song Memorial Day to sing his longing and nostalgia for the past years, as well as his anger and confusion towards the strange and dazzling world. The powerful rhythm and melody, the rough but real lyrics, coupled with his unique hoarse roar, made the audience feel as if they had returned to that period of rock and roll. They sang randomly with Liao Jia, roared loudly, shouted together, and commemorated together. In the backstage area, all the singers, including Lu Qin, stood up and paid tribute to the rock veteran who had never really given in. Many fans once said that Liao Jia, who wrote Ivy House and Old Guy, had fallen, and that he had turned his back on rock and roll in the declining era of the country and chose to compromise with the market. However, at this moment, Liao Jia, who was standing on the stage, was still that angry young man in a black t-shirt and blue jeans with long hair, who roared his dream of freedom with a guitar and singing. The atmosphere of the music festival was instantly pushed to a climax. The cheers and applause of the audience were like a tide, each wave higher than the last, and countless people were shouting his name. Liao Jia. This name was also a symbol of the past era. By the time he finished singing Memorial Day, Liao Jia was already sweating profusely and panting. Time was merciless, and the former rock and roll youth was now old. His addiction to cigarettes and alcohol had greatly damaged his health, making it impossible for him to return to his peak state. Just like Memorial Day. It was undeniable that Liao Jia's new rock and roll work was very tasty. It was 100% Chinese rock and roll, but whether it was the melody or the lyrics, there was not much novelty. It could not be compared with classics such as Ivy House or Old Guy. Although the audience was excited by Liao Jia's performance, they were obviously not completely satisfied. Old Man. No one knew who started it, but it soon became the main melody of the scene, Old Man. The audience wanted to listen to the old song that embodied the feelings of the country again. As expected, Liao Jia satisfied everyone's request and sang Old Guy again. Old Guy was written in the late 1990s. It was a classic work released by Liao Jia when the national rock scene was dispirited. At that time, this album was regarded as the last glory of the national rock scene. Since then, Liao Jia had no works that could be compared with it. Almost 20 years had passed, but the charm of the song had not faded. Instead, it had become more and more intoxicating as time passed. However, Liao Jia's state of mind when he sang the song again was different. There was too much vicissitudes and helplessness. Instead, the scene quieted down. Listening to the familiar melody and listening to Liao Jia's voice, which was no longer young, many old fans could not help but shed tears and sing along silently or softly. Romance was always blown away by the wind and rain. No matter how unwilling they were, the national rock scene was already a thing of the past. The 72H Grass Music Festival could not save pure rock and roll, just as Liao Jia could not save the national rock scene. At this moment, many fans forgave Liao Jia's betrayal of rock and roll from the bottom of their hearts. It was enough to have that period of time. Liao Jia felt the emotions of the audience at the scene and was deeply infected by it. In the end, his eyes also turned red. After playing the last note, Liao Jia bowed deeply with his guitar. He used this way to thank these most lovely, most sincere, most loyal fans. Go! 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 The next moment, the same shouts rang out like a tsunami. This was a request for Liao Jia to return to the stage. According to the rules of 72H, whether it was a singer or a band, they could only sing a maximum of 2 songs on stage. However, if they performed well enough and were requested by the audience to return, they could sing 1 more song. The audience of 72H was very picky. It was not easy to get the approval of most of them. From noon until now, there were only a few singers and bands who were requested to return. After singing 2 high-intensity songs in a row, Liao Jia was not only sweating, but even his cotton shirt was soaked with sweat. However, he did not show the slightest fatigue. Instead, he was in high spirits and his face was glowing, especially his pair of eyes that were amazingly bright. No one would refuse a fan's request to return, and Liao Jia was no exception. The third song he sang was also his famous song, Ivy House. This rock and roll work was not as intense as Old Guy. It was more nostalgic, and the melody and rhythm leaned towards a light rock and roll style. It was very suitable as the closing song. Liao Jia's voice was a little hoarse, but Ivy House was still sung with such flavor that the fans at the scene were intoxicated. In the end, although there were still many fans who continued to shout "Go!" trying to keep this rock and roll veteran. However, Liao Jia did not break the rules of 72H. He bowed repeatedly and thanked them before leaving the stage. He left the stage to the newcomer. When Liao Jia returned to the backstage area, all the singers applauded together to express their respect. Liao Jia smiled and cupped his hands in return. Thank you, thank you. He strode back to Lu Chen's side and sat down in his original position. He reached out to wipe the sweat on his forehead and asked impatiently, "How is it? Do you still have confidence?" His expression was completely like a naughty child who had just obtained a big slingshot and was showing it off to his friends. Lu Chen smiled and gave him a thumbs up. Brother Liao is mighty. Lu Chen sincerely admired Liao Jia's youthful spirit. Some singers sang better as they got older. Liao Jia was obviously such a singer. It was really good to listen to him live. Don't give me that. Liao Jia glared at him and his eyes dimmed a lot. Actually, I know that the first song I wrote wasn't that good. Now I can only rely on my past achievements to get popular. Lu Chen tried to comfort him. Brother Liao, you can't say that. You don't have to comfort me. Liao Jia shook his head. He patted Lu Chen's shoulder and wiped it. The future of the music industry belongs to you guys. Lu Chen really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After Liao Jia finished and Lu Chen went on stage, there were 3 singers and a band in the middle. Among them, the 3 singers who went on stage after Liao Jia were not famous. The quality of the works they brought was mediocre. Although they sang very hard, they didn't get much applause and recognition from the audience. The style of the 72H Grass Music Festival was like this. If you didn't perform well on stage, then don't expect the audience to give you face. There was no live support here. If the singer asked the fans for applause, they would only get boos. But the band Wednesday, who was in front of Lu Chen, made people's eyes light up. Wednesday was quite famous in the rock circle. The lead singer, Shi Gang, was a very good singer and lyricist. He created a song, Earth Ballad, which was once a hit at the 72H Grass Music Festival and became a rock star at that time. But Wednesday didn't become popular in the music industry for long. After releasing 2 albums, there weren't many new works. In recent years they had almost disappeared. This year Wednesday made a comeback with new works. There was no doubt that they had prepared carefully. One was City of Loneliness, and the other was Hurt. These 2 light rock works, whether it was the melody or the lyrics, were remarkable. The lead singer, Shi Gang, performed these 2 works very well and sang with enough flavor. So far, there were more than 100 original works that were brought out by the singers in this year's music festival. City of Loneliness and Hurt were among the best works. Especially the latter song, Hurt, was even more wonderful. The climax of the chorus made the fans' hearts rise and fall. Applause rang out one after another. Without any suspense, after the 2 original works were finished, Wednesday also received the treatment of returning to the stage. The returning song was the song that made them famous, Earth Ballad. 10 years to sharpen a sword. Liao Jia, who was watching the scene from the backstage area, said to Lu Chen, "Gang Zi has really matured." Lu Chen asked, "Are you friends with him?" Liao Jia shook his head and said, "Not really. I used to know him and chatted a little. Wednesday was originally in Beijing, but then they went to the deep sea. I heard that they didn't do well. Now they definitely want to come back." Liao Jia's tone was very matter-of-fact. The center of the domestic pop music industry had always been in Beijing. Singers and bands that didn't develop in Beijing, no matter how well they did, were not an important part of the circle. The others, whether it was in Shanghai or the deep sea, belonged to the periphery. Therefore, if a singer, including a band, wanted to realize their ambitions and dreams, then Beijing was the only choice. 72H Grass Music Festival was actually a stage for newcomers to realize their dreams. Wednesday had come and gone. Now that they came back, they came prepared and brought out good works. "Are you under any pressure?" Liao Jia smiled and asked Lu Chen, "Next, it's your turn to go on stage." "Yes." Lu Chen had already stood up and said, "But what I'm least afraid of is pressure." If this was a challenge, he was happy to accept any challenge. This was Lu Chen's confidence. Chapter 326. Looking at the countless cheering audiences below the stage, Shi Gang, the lead singer of the Wednesday band, was thrilled. For more than a decade, the fate of him and the Wednesday band could be described as ups and downs. When he became famous in 72H and joined Gem Records, he thought he had embarked on a bright road to stardom. However, there were many contradictions within the band and with the signing company, which consumed too much of Shi Gang's energy. In the end, he had to take several members to the south and stay away from the mainstream circle. However, the idea of returning to Beijing had always been in Shi Gang's heart. He just wanted to make a comeback. He must come back in style and let the name of the Wednesday band become loud in the pop music world again. Now Shi Gang's goal had been half achieved. The 2 original works had undoubtedly been recognized by the audience. Their applause was the best proof. He couldn't help but clench his fists. After bowing to express his gratitude, he walked off the stage with his team members. But Shi Gang didn't go far. He stood at the bottom of the steps. Because he knew that the next singer was Lu Chen, a popular star in the music world. Shi Gang first heard the name Lu Chen in July last year. At that time, a new singer came to the bar where he sang. The latter's first song was called In the Spring. Shi Gang still remembered the first time he heard In the Spring. His whole body was numb, the blood in his body rushed to the top of his head, and he was so excited that he wanted to cry. The song was so well written. And the author of this song was Lu Chen, a very young singer and songwriter. Later, he gradually learned about many of Lu Chen's works, including Lu Chen's album, You Who Sat Next to Me. Shi Gang admired Lu Chen's creative talent. When he learned that Lu Chen would also participate in 72H and would appear at the same time as him, He felt excited. A singer must challenge himself and his opponent to continue to improve. Most importantly, Gang was very confident in his work. He believed that the Wednesday band, which had been rebuilt by him, would not lose to anyone. On the contrary, he was looking forward to Lu Chen's appearance. He couldn't wait to know what new works the latter would come up with. Folk song? Or light rock? Or something else? If he could defeat Lu Chen on this stage, then his return with Wednesday would be perfect. Just as Gang was in a state of confusion, Lu Chen took the Nirvana band to the big stage. Everyone's eyes were focused on him. The arrangement for the first day of the 72H Music Festival was a bit special. At this time in the evening, Liao Jia, Wednesday's band, and Lu Chen were arranged to appear consecutively. While creating a climax atmosphere, it also allowed the audience to naturally intuitively compare the three. Liao Jia's performance was wonderful, and his strength was worthy of his reputation. Wednesday was a surprise for the band. It was the highlight of the first day's performance, and its original works were of high quality. So what will Lu Chen, who has just appeared on the stage, bring to the audience? Now the audience's appetite had been big. Although Lu Chen was very famous and had the reputation of being a musical genius, he might not necessarily have a wonderful performance. There were not just one or two celebrities who had lost face on 72H. And the audience's expectations and doubts have imperceptibly condensed into a huge pressure imposed on Lu Chen. Many of the fans who came to the 72H scene were born in the 60s and 70s. Some of them didn't like Lu Chen and thought that he was not much different from the so-called fresh meat in the current entertainment industry. Speaking of this impression to a large extent, was caused by Autumn in My Heart. Even if they hadn't watched this popular TV series, it was inevitable to see Lu Chen's name in entertainment news and online topics. In addition, the recent rumors of Lu Chen and Chen Feier's love affair with a younger brother had spread far and wide, so some people associated him with idol stars and ignored him as the original creator of In the Spring, Fly Higher, and other works. So if Lu Chen's performance on the scene was not good, there must be people who would take pleasure in his misfortune. 72H was a world of strength. Lu Chen felt the pressure from the challengers in the audience and he was fearless. Lu Chen stood here today not to prove anything or show off to others, but to realize the dream he once had. He had no urgency to become famous, and he didn't need to challenge anyone. There was really no pressure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lu Chen. Facing the microphone, Lu Chen first made a simple introduction. With me is the Nirvana band. Wang Jing and others got up and saluted, and sparse applause sounded under the stage. No one had heard of the band's name, and the applause was purely polite. Some people were screaming. Those were Lu Chen's diehard fans. Lu Chen didn't care and continued, "Today I will bring you the first work called Free as the Wind." As soon as his voice fell, the prelude played by the bass suddenly sounded and was transmitted to everyone's ears through the 6 pairs of high-quality outdoor sound systems arranged at the scene. The next moment, the intense drumbeat hit people's eardrums, making people's blood boil. "I'm as free as the wind, just like your gentleness can't be retained. You push away my outstretched hands, you go, you better not look back, endless drifting, the desire for freedom, bear all the vicissitudes alone. I give you gentleness but you refuse to accept it, I give you the real feeling of my hands, I give you the long memory of freedom, I give you everything but I can't stay. I'm as free as the wind." As one of the most popular singers in 72H, Lu Chen's work has always been one of the hot topics in the small circle. Many people think that he will sing his famous works. This is the safest way to do it. After all, a person's inspiration is always limited. No singer can guarantee that their works will be excellent. If they don't get the fans' approval with their new works, it will undoubtedly be a blow to Lu Chen's rising reputation. Singing his own original songs is not shameful and it is safe enough. It must be known that 72H fans are very picky. Lu Chen solved the suspense in many people's hearts with a brand new work. The name of this song is Free as the Wind. Simple and straightforward lyrics, without any esoteric and complex connotations or metaphors. Even without the lyrics prompt on the background screen, anyone can hear it clearly. This is the consistent characteristic of Lu Chen's light rock works. And the melody is still so wonderful and outstanding. It's just that in terms of style, Free as the Wind doesn't have the vicissitudes of In the Spring, the passion of Fly Higher, and it doesn't have the loneliness of Blue Lotus. This song is unruly to the bone. Note, Free as the Wind lyricist/composer, Su Wei. Chapter 327. Many of the singers and bands that participated in the 72H Grass Music Festival had the desire to achieve their dreams. They stood on this stage that advocated freedom and tolerance and did their best to show their talent and energy to the audience. Because among the tens of thousands of audience, there was no lack of representatives from entertainment agencies. Once they were selected by a powerful company, it was possible for them to soar into the sky and step into the glittering mainstream circle. It was the efforts of these singers and bands that made 72H have always been full of vitality and become a very influential event in the domestic pop music industry. But not all singers came to be famous. For example, Liao Jia. Although 72H's stage was very big, it was able to invite him to the stage without paying any price because Liao Jia had deep feelings for this music festival. Feelings were priceless. As for Lu Qin, the reason why Lu Qin appeared on 72H's stage was to fulfill his wish. So he didn't have any pressure. He sang because he wanted to. This song, Free Like the Wind, sang his unruly and carefree nature. It was his understanding of his own life. Perhaps Free Like the Wind wasn't as classic as In the Spring, Blue Lotus, and Chasing Dreams with a Pure Heart, but it was precisely because of Lu Chen's carefreeness that he performed this song almost perfectly. He hugged his guitar and faced the tens of thousands of audience members. He sang in the wind and roared to his heart's content. Endless drifting, the desire for freedom. Bear all the vicissitudes alone. I give you gentleness but you refuse to accept it. I'm free like the wind. The simple lyrics and melody were repeated twice, each time with a different feeling. And now the audience very naturally and comfortably accepted this song. It wasn't heavy, extreme, or angry, but it sang to the bottom of people's hearts and sang the feelings of youth. Who didn't have a youth? I'm free like the wind, just like your gentleness that can't be held back. When Lu Qin sang the same passage for the third time, there were already many audience members singing along with the synchronized lyrics displayed on the big screen on the stage. I'm free like the wind. There was no distinction between the stage and the audience. The atmosphere of the music festival was pushed to a new climax. This was the live resonance that many singers who participated in 72H dreamed of. Lu Qin had done it easily and casually. In the backstage area, Liao Jia, who heard the climax of the chorus, waved his fist and applauded hard. This little brother of his was not just for show. He was going to lose tonight's bet. On the other hand, Shi Gang, who was standing beside the stage, had a bitter smile on his face. He had spent 10 years sharpening his sword to come up with a work that he had poured his blood, sweat, and tears into, hoping to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. However, whether it was City of Loneliness or Wound, they paled in comparison to Lu Chen's song. Shi Gang wasn't deluded enough to think that his work wasn't worse than Lu Chen's. Lining up before Lu Chen was such a mistake. After Lu Chen's first work, Free as the Wind, was sung, the whole audience applauded, mixed with sharp whistles. Even those fans who still had prejudices against him had to admit that this was a very good work. It didn't meet the requirements of a classic, but on today's stage, it was absolutely outstanding. Coming up with such a work also proved Lu Chen's sincerity. To put it bluntly, a singer and songwriter like him could sell hundreds of thousands of yuan with a casual song. And there was no remuneration for 72H's performance, whether it was a big shot in the circle or an unknown singer. Thank you everyone. Lu Qin bowed to the audience, then turned to the members of the Nirvana band behind him and said, "Thank you Nirvana band." Wang Jing waved her left hand at him, and Chen Zhiyong raised the drumstick in his hand and made a fancy gesture in response. The 4 young members of the Nirvana band were very excited. It was their first time to participate in 72H's performance. Performing in front of such a large audience, they all went all out just now. Although the current Nirvana band is far from being compared with those veteran bands, and their skills and perception of music are not deep enough, it is precisely because they are young that they have unlimited growth potential. Lu Qin continued, "The second song is also a new song, and it's also the first time I've performed it in public." Hearing Lu Chen's words, many audiences became excited. Originally, many people thought that Lu Chen would bring a new work and an old song to everyone in the evening, just like Liao Jia, but they didn't expect him to come up with 2 new works. It was really an unexpected surprise. Generally speaking, if a singer of 72H comes up with 2 works, the second one is often stronger than the first one. The name of this song is Free as a Dream. When the name of the song appeared on the big screen on the stage, countless audiences couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise. At first, they thought they saw it wrong or the backstage computer control display was wrong, but when they took a closer look, they found that it was really called Free as a Dream, which was only 1 word different from Lu Chen's first song. What kind of joke was this? For a time, there was a lot of discussion under the stage, and everyone didn't understand what Lu Chen was selling. Two songs, only one word different? Lu Chen didn't explain and made a gesture to the Nirvana band. The prelude sounded. Will you still miss me, my dearest friend, when I decide to let go of everything, go up the road to freedom? Will you still be with me, my most missed family, have said goodbye to yesterday, driving to the road to the future? The first part was mainly accompanied by guitar, and the inquiring lyrics with a trace of sadness and melancholy, which were sung by Lu Chen, unfolded to the people a picture of parting. But then the unfolding chorus entered the climax, and the melody suddenly became passionate and enthusiastic. I want to be free as a dream, strong as the sky, on this winding road, experience the meaning of life. As Lu Chen raised the scale, the theme of the work was suddenly sublimated, majestic and full of the brave attitude of pursuing freedom. The audience at the scene had a feeling of being hit in the heart in an instant, and at the same time, it inspired everyone's yearning for freedom and the pursuit and desire of a better life. Because the road has a boundless heart, temporarily put down the busy and hurried life, to experience the pleasure of galloping freely in the wilderness, to untie the heavy shackles of the mind, and to find the true self. Life needs to be settled. Occasionally emptying yourself, maybe you can find a more reasonable explanation? Who knows, we are still on the road, let that free heart be willfully exiled. The realization that this song brings to people is far more than that. Will you still be with me, my most missed family, have said goodbye to yesterday, driving to the road to the future. I want to be free as a dream, tolerant as the earth, on this difficult road of exile, light up the light of life. Freedom, spontaneity, pioneer, creation. This is the theme of the 72H Grass Music Festival, and the spirit of freedom has always run through the rise and decline of national rock. These two works created by Lu Chen in the name of freedom have undoubtedly touched the deepest and truest feelings of the fans and singers at the scene. Whether it is Free as the Wind, or Free as a Dream, they are not the kind of rock works in the pure sense, but the spirit of freedom contained in these two songs is beyond the reach of many pure rock songs. This has made many people reflect on whether the so-called rebellious, extreme and even antisocial rock spirit they have been pursuing is precisely one of the important reasons for the decline of national rock. Rock songs can also be free, progressive and sunny. Perhaps this is the reason why Lu Chen brought these two works to 72H. Thinking of his other works such as In the Spring and Blue Lotus, many singers fell into deep thought. At this moment, all the light gathered on Lu Chen's body. He is like the wind, like a dream, free and unruly. Lost. Liao Jia, who was in the backstage area, laughed and turned to the singers present and said, "Tomorrow night, come to the Dihao Hotel. I'll treat everyone to a drink." Brother Liao naturally kept his word. He couldn't do anything shameless. If he lost to Lu Chen, he had to treat. He was willing. Next to the stage, Gang shook his head helplessly. There is no comparison, there is really no comparison. He is convinced. After singing the second song, Free as a Dream, Lu Chen took a step back and then bowed deeply. Fine beads of sweat seeped out of his forehead, glimmering under the illumination of the light. His eyes were bright and full of spirit. Applause, warm, sincere and enthusiastic applause, like a spring thunder and then endless, set off an invisible storm at the scene of Wild Mountain Park. Free as the wind, free as a dream, Lu Chen proved his strength with these two freedom songs and conquered tens of thousands of fans at the scene. The applause he received was well-deserved. Good. Sing one more song. Many fans shouted loudly and waved their arms with all their might, trying to attract the attention of Lu Chen on the stage. Go. Someone roared, and then others seemed to wake up from a dream and followed suit, shouting, "Go! Go! Go! Go!" All the voices converged into one voice, which was the voice that urged Lu Chen to stay and begged him to return to the stage. Lu Chen stopped and bowed again. "Thank you." It was not the first time he had felt the enthusiasm of fans, nor was it the first time he had enjoyed the cheers from fans, nor was it the first time he had been asked to stay by fans. However, here at the scene with tens of thousands of fans on the scene, it was so different. They were true fans of pop music. The things they stuck to and persisted in might not be understood by others, but their love was so sincere. To be able to get their recognition, love, and pursuit was a real glory. Note, Free as a Dream lyricist/composer, Wang Feng. Chapter 328. At the request of thousands of fans, Lu Chen returned to sing the third song. But instead of coming up with a new work, he sang a folk song of his own, The Bright Times of Youth. Because the mood of the audience has been stirred up by his first two songs, if he sings that kind of intense and high-spirited work again, it is hard to say what unnecessary trouble it will cause. It should be known that there are at least 20,000 fans gathered in Wild Mountain Park. Although not all of them gathered in front of the big stage, it is still quite an amazing number. Once a fan loses control of his emotions and does something irrational, it is easy to cause serious consequences. That's what no one wants to see. Paying attention to controlling the emotions of fans is also one of the requirements of the music festival organizing committee for singers. The soothing melody and nostalgic folk song undoubtedly appeases the fans, calms down their boiling blood and makes their emotions return to normal. In fact, this is very comfortable to listen to, like the comfort after a climax, with the pleasure of tension and relaxation. After singing this song, The Bright Times of Youth, Lu Chen left with the Nirvana band in the applause of the whole audience, leaving the stage to the latecomers. The night is long and the music carnival has just begun, but for Lu Chen his performance is over. Of course, his former wishes and dreams have also been fully satisfied. Good singing. Backstage, Liao Jia clenched his fist and punched Lu Chen on the shoulder. The song is good. I lost. Lu Chen touched his nose and said, Brother Liao Jia actually what? Liao Jia's eyes widened like copper bells and he asked angrily, do you want to say that I'm the kind of person who doesn't keep his word? All right. Lu Chen was convinced. Liao Jia turned angry into happy, patted him on the shoulder and said, tomorrow night, Dihao Hotel, you all come. He said the last sentence to the members of Nirvana. Wang Jing and others felt flattered. This is Liao Jia, a real idol-level big brother. Then the singers in the backstage area, whether they knew each other or not, came up to shake hands and say hello to Lu Chen. After witnessing Lu Chen's strength with their own eyes, their attitudes changed greatly. Of course, the excuse that everyone used to get close to Lu Chen was to thank Lu Chen for helping them earn a big meal. The place where Liao Jia treated them was the 5-star Imperial Grand Hotel. For a time, the atmosphere in the backstage area was very harmonious. Hello Lu Chen. Just at this time, a man in his 30s strode in front of Lu Chen and extended his hand to him. Lu Chen quickly reached out and shook hands with him. Hello, Brother Gongzi. The man was the lead singer of Wednesday's band, Shi Gang. He was surprised. You know me? Lu Chen smiled and said, Brother Liao Jia told me. Liao Jia, who was chatting with others next to him, turned his head and said to Shi Gang, Gangzi, let's go for a drink tonight. Shi Gang quickly replied, Okay Brother Liao. Whether it was in the past or now, Liao Jia was the person he looked up to and admired. Liao Jia invited him to go out for a drink, which was really giving him face. The two originally didn't have such a friendship. Liao Jia smiled and said, You also sang well tonight. Shi Gang's face was red, not because of shyness but because of excitement. After calming down he asked Lu Chen, can I talk to you? Lu Chen nodded and said, Of course. The two sat down in the corner backstage and the others didn't disturb them. Shi Gang rubbed his hands and asked, Lu Chen, I want to ask, did your studio sign anyone? Sign anyone? Lu Chen was stunned. What do you mean? Shi Gang said calmly, If you are willing, I want to sign Wednesday's band to your studio. Lu Chen was stunned. He didn't expect that Shi Gang actually wanted to go to his studio. Wednesday's band was not a nobody. Although it had long been outdated, it was still quite important in the eyes of some fans. Moreover, tonight's performance was very good, and there was a trend of a comeback. He believed that many entertainment agencies would be happy to sign such a mature band with a foundation. Lu Chen was regretful. Brother Gang, I'm really sorry, but I don't have the idea of signing anyone for the time being. He had just acquired Nirvana Studios and already had a band. In addition, the focus of his work was there, so it was impossible to sign another band, even if the other party had great potential. Shi Gang was not surprised by Lu Chen's refusal. He just wanted to give it a try. Today's Shi Gang was no longer the artistic youth of the past. The ups and downs of life made him deeply understand the importance of opportunities. Whether it was for himself or for his brothers, he had to be responsible. This time, Shi Gang was going to take Wednesday's band to take root in Beijing again, and then he would not leave. In his opinion, Lu Chen's studio was a good choice. Shi Gang had an understanding of Lu Chen. He was very clear about the latter's creative talent and ability to create stars. If he could get the support of this musical genius, Wednesday's band would have a great future. Speaking of which, Shi Gang was also called a musical genius, but compared with Lu Chen he was really far behind. That's a pity. I hope there will be opportunities for cooperation in the future. Shi Gang said very sincerely. Lu Chen's heart moved and he said, Brother Gang, let me recommend you a record company. Shi Gang's eyes lit up. Which company? Lu Chen said, Flying Stone Records. He felt that the style and positioning of Flying Stone Records should be very suitable for Wednesday's band. Of course, Gang knew Flying Stone Records, but he said with a wry smile, "I'm afraid Flying Stone Records won't look up to us, right?" Flying Stone Records used to be the leader of the domestic record industry. It once declined, but now it has revived and restored some of its peak strength. At present, it is also one of the big shots in the industry. In contrast, the weight of Wednesday's band was inevitably insufficient. They were more willing to train newcomers. Luchin said with a smile, "I have a good relationship with Lin Jijie, the music director of Flying Stone Records. I'll introduce you to each other. How do you know if there's a chance if you don't try?" Gang thanked Luchin. "Thank you." In fact, he had nothing to do with Luchin. It was the first time the two met. Luchin was willing to help introduce Lin Jijie, which really made him very grateful. In the entertainment industry, human relations were as thin as paper, and it was rare to have warm-hearted people. Luchin simply took out his phone. "I'll call Brother Lin now and see if he has time." The phone was quickly connected, and Lin Jijie was really free in the evening. So, Luchin simply called Liao Jia, Wednesday's band, and his own Nirvana band to go out to find a place to have a midnight snack, and by the way introduce Lin Jijie. Leaving Wild Mountain Park, the 72H Grass Music Festival was already a thing of the past for Luchin. Chapter 329. When Luchin returned to Zicheng Yuan, it was already after 11 o'clock in the evening. This midnight snack lasted more than 2 hours. Liao Jia deserved to be a famous glutton in the circle. The nearby places were all first-class private restaurants, and more than a dozen people just made up a table. Lin Jijie also came not only because of Luchin but also because he and Liao Jia were friends and it was just a chance to meet. As for Gang, Lin Jijie was still very interested. At present, Flying Stone Records was expanding its strength, and it had signed a lot of newcomers. Like Wednesday's band, as long as they had good works, they could also enter their sites. Of course, such a thing as signing people was not something that Lin Jijie could decide alone. It needed further investigation and discussion, because it involved a lot of specific details. For Gang, it was already very lucky to be able to get in touch with Lin Jijie, a senior executive of Flying Stone Records. No matter whether he could be signed to Flying Stone Records in the end, he owed Luchin a big favor. So everyone was very happy in the evening. During the dinner, Luchin was forced to drink by several big brothers. In the end, he asked Wang Jing to drive him back. She was the only one who didn't drink. According to Luchin's instructions, he drove to Building 7. Wang Jing asked, "Do you want me to send you up?" Luchin rubbed his eyebrows and said, "No, you can drive the car away. Just drive it back to the studio tomorrow." Although he drank a lot of wine, he was not drunk enough to go home. Wang Jing hesitated for a moment, nodded and said, "Okay, see you tomorrow." "Thank you." Luchin smiled at her and said, "It's late. Drive carefully and slowly." With that, Luchin opened the door and got out of the car. Wang Jing watched his figure disappear from her sight. She sighed softly and then drove away. Swiping the door card to open the elevator, Luchin went straight to the 17th floor. When he got home, he took out his keys and opened the door. After entering, he turned on the lights. Squinting his eyes to adjust to the bright light, Luchin took off his thick coat and threw it on the sofa. "Why are you back so late?" Just as he was about to go to the bathroom to take a hot shower, he suddenly heard a pleasant voice. Luchin couldn't help but jump in fright. He instinctively turned his head and saw a beautiful woman standing at the door of the master bedroom, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Chen Feier. Luchin felt like he was bungee jumping. He quickly walked over and asked, "When did you come back?" As he asked, Luchin opened his arms and hugged her hard in his arms. Chen Feier was wearing a set of pink cotton pajamas from Hello Kitty. Her sleepy appearance had the cuteness of a young girl. When Luchin smelled her unique fragrance, all the fatigue in his body disappeared. Since the last time they returned to Beijing, the two hadn't had a good time together. 2 days ago, Chen Feier was shooting a commercial in another city. He didn't expect to give him a big surprise at night. Luchin couldn't help but kiss her on the face. Felt really good. Hugging her was like hugging the whole world. There was nothing else to ask for. Chen Feier woke up and said with a smile, "I just came back at night and ran over here." "You?" She suddenly wrinkled her little nose and sniffed. Her pretty face showed a look of disgust. "How much wine did you drink?" Luchin smiled and lowered his head to kiss her lips. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. The two had just broken through their relationship not long ago. Now was the time for adultery. And Luchin was definitely a very, very strong man. However, before he could taste the fragrance, his mouth was blocked by Chen Feier's hand. The latter said coquettishly, "It stinks." Don't pollute me. Go brush your teeth and take a bath. Lu Qin could only let go of her hand. Good boy, Qin Fei said with a smile. I'll wait for you in bed. She said this sentence softly, and her eyes were so charming that water was about to drip out. She was extremely charming. Qin Fei was already a mature woman. After experiencing human affairs, she exuded an amazing charm. That kind of amorous feeling from the inside out made her charm increase exponentially. The so-called natural beauty was nothing more than this. Lu Qin was dumbfounded. After a while, he couldn't help but roar and rushed into the bathroom like a whirlwind. After brushing his teeth and taking a bath as fast as he could, Lu Qin put on a bathrobe and returned to the bedroom. The ceiling light in the bedroom had already been turned off. Only the small frosted table lamp on the bedside table was still emitting a dim yellow light, dimly illuminating the large bed. He could see a graceful figure bulging out from under the loose duvet. Lu Qin resisted the love and desire in his heart and couldn't wait to get into the warm quilt. The next moment, a hot and fragrant female body leaned over and clung tightly to Lu Qin's chest. A pair of jade-like arms hugged his neck, and a charming whisper sounded in his ear. Love me. As if adding oil to the fire, Lu Qin could no longer suppress the impulse in his heart. He growled and pressed the person in his arms under his body. The bedroom was suddenly filled with the tide of spring, and the waves were rolling. He completely forgot that he was in the human world. Early in the morning, Lu Qin woke up to the crisp chirping of birds. There was a large park near Zicheng Garden. As a high-end community, the green environment inside and outside the community was excellent. Therefore, it was inevitable that many birds would linger around and build nests. They would sing early in the morning and look for food, waking up people who were sleeping. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was a beautiful picture of a beautiful woman sleeping in spring. Qin Fei was still sleeping soundly. Her black hair was scattered, and there was a smile on her lips. In the faint morning light, she looked like a muse. Of course she was naked. Lu Qin was stunned for a moment. His memory gradually recovered, and he finally confirmed that he was not dreaming. Thinking of the love and affection last night, he couldn't help but be tempted. Probably because she felt the pressure from Lu Qin, Qin Fei woke up with a moan. Lu Qin lowered his head and kissed her neck. You're so annoying. Qin Fei giggled. She couldn't help but be entangled with him, and the result was out of control. In the end, Lu Qin saw that she really had no strength and was begging for mercy, so he reluctantly let her go. Qin Fei used the last bit of her strength to pinch him and said in a sweet voice, I still have work today. Lu Qin smiled and kissed her back. He got up in high spirits. It was rare that he didn't go out to exercise in the morning. Instead, he went to the kitchen to find the ingredients in the fridge and made a hearty breakfast himself. There were poached eggs, porridge, fried bacon. Qin Fei also woke up and came to the kitchen in her pajamas. She hugged Lu Qin from behind and leaned her face on his broad and strong back. She murmured, Say, let's do this every day, okay? Lu Qin put down the shovel, turned around and hugged her in his arms. He smiled and said, Of course I don't have a problem with that. Qin Fei pouted and sighed helplessly. She enjoyed living alone with Lu Qin, but if she wanted to do this every day she would have to give up her career. This wasn't what she wanted, at least for now. So what she said just now was just a casual remark. Lu Qin saw through everything. He held back his laughter and said, Actually, you don't have to do this every day. As long as you need it, I will accompany you anytime for free. Eat, chat and sleep with you. What do you think? That's nice. Qin Fei was amused by him, and the depressed mood just now suddenly disappeared. Lu Qin smiled and said, Let's eat breakfast. The two of them sweetly and affectionately ate a heartwarming breakfast together. It was almost 10 o'clock when they finished eating. Qin Fei wiped her mouth with a napkin and began to clean up the plates. She asked casually, Who did you drink with so late last night? Lu Qin, he thought that this matter was already over. He didn't expect that Qin Fei would still remember it. Qin Fei snorted and said, Even if you don't tell me, I know. Liao Jia must have dragged her there, right? Although Qin Fei didn't participate in 72H, she still knew a lot of things. Lu Qin smiled bitterly and said, Brother Jijia was there too. He knew that Qin Fei didn't like Liao Jia very much. Of course he didn't like it when Liao Jia dragged him to drink. In fact, it wasn't many times. Qin Fei said coquettishly, Don't use Brother Jijia as a shield. Don't hang out with Liao Jia in the future. He's good at eating, drinking, whoring and gambling. Won't you learn bad things from him? Lu Qin smiled bitterly. Qin Fei said seriously, I don't object to you making friends like Brother Tan and Brother Lin. They are all very good, but it's better to hang out with some people and drink less. There are too many people in the circle who make mistakes because of drinking. Lu Qin surrendered. I know. He knew that Qin Fei was doing this for his own good. Qin Fei continued, don't go out these days. I want to finish the new album. Lu Qin said solemnly, yes, my dear wife. Qin Fei's pretty face suddenly blushed. She spat and said, who's your wife? You're still in the probation period. Be careful that I don't kick you at any time. Lu Qin wasn't afraid and said, I'm still in the probation period? Then I'll have to work harder tonight. Hearing his teasing, Qin Fei was so embarrassed that she couldn't even raise her head. She reached out and pinched him hard. Ring ring ring. The two of them were laughing and joking when the phone on the coffee table in the living room suddenly rang. Lu Qin had no choice but to let go of Qin Fei and ran over to pick up the phone. It was Lu Shi who called him. Lu Qin hung up after saying a few words to his sister. Qin Fei saw that his expression was a little strange. She couldn't help but walk over and ask, what's wrong? Lu Qin said, my sister has negotiated with SPG. SPG was the SPG entertainment company in South Korea. Recently, SPG had been negotiating with Lu Qin's studio about the import of Autumn in My Heart. Because SPG's conditions were relatively harsh, it was very difficult for Lu Shi to negotiate with the representative of SPG, Pu Young-ho. She didn't expect that there would be a result this morning. Of course Qin Fei knew about this. She was surprised. Really? How much did SPG offer? 1 billion won. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.